All right. Guys, we're introducing ourselves at the beginning of the show. Awesome, guys. Hey. Welcome to Soscast, episode 47. Guys, I haven't been this excited to host a debate maybe in my life. Okay? So let me set the tone here. I know our audience is super excited. I'm excited. People here at Valuetainment are super excited. I know you guys are excited. You guys have never met in person. So let me kind of set the tone of what's happening today. And I'm going to be the moderator of this debate. You guys are going to be doing probably 90% of the talking, and I'll feed you guys questions. But for those of you that are just tuning in, welcome to Soscast, episode 47. This is where finance meets romance. This is where money and relationships intersect, intersexual dynamics. You see how we did that? Plug to Rollo. Only here on Valuetainment, the #1 channel in the world for entrepreneurs, okay? So here on this show, we're all here to, I think we can all agree, all of us are here to help men improve, okay?
Absolutely.
That's why we kind of are intersecting on this show right now. We want to help men win. We want to help them win in the marketplace, in the sexual marketplace, and win in life. What I always say is you come to here to the Soscast so you can get paid, and you get laid, and you do it your way. So with that being said, special guests on the show today. Should we do age or beauty first?
Beauty.
Beauty. You were the beautiful guy. On my left, this is Ruslan. Okay,
I love
Ruslan
that.
KD.
Yeah, I love how you pronounce my name.
Ruslan.
Thank you.
Okay, I if I tried to pronounce your last name, brother, I'd probably butcher it. But go ahead, give the last name.
Karaoglanov.
Karaoglanov. Once he says it, I can repeat it pretty easily. Karaoglanov, rapper, influencer, but most importantly, bless up, follower of Christ.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, and you've been on the show a couple times now. This is the second time.
Yeah.
I think officially. You interviewed PBD yesterday.
Last night, yes, sir.
We've done some stuff together before.
You've been on my channel.
And Rollo, this is probably his 10th time being here at Valuetainment. I don't know if that's the over-under, but
certainly once a month since February.
Yes.
I would say modern day philosopher, specifically about the concept of intersexual dynamics.
Student of life.
Student of life, but that's you. But I feel like a lot of our viewers, a teacher of life. So
well, we all are. I mean, everybody
are.
is. Anybody who's an influencer today is a teacher.
Okay, but today, so let me set the tone. We're gonna have a debate. I think a healthy debate, a spirited debate. You guys have been you guys have never met in person, correct?
Never met in person. No,
you guys have intersected on Twitter, on social media, on YouTube. We've done reaction videos. You've done reaction videos. You guys have known each other for how long at this point?
I think November.
Yeah,
okay.
November. Yeah.
So almost a year coming. Happy anniversary, guys!
Thanks.
Almost. Right? So, there
get
was
a cake or something.
I don't remember what the tweet was or what exactly happened, but I think it was you say, "Oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, all right. Why don't we go on Valuetainment, mutual friend? I'm friends with both of them for the record, and let's have Adam Sosnick moderate a debate, a unfiltered debate where you guys can both freely speak your mind, prove your points, and I'm here to just kind of be the Don King and the host of this situation, okay? I should have spiked my hair. But listen, here's the guarantee that I will make today. I don't know who's going to win this debate, but like we discussed earlier, I know for a fact that the audience listening is going to win. Because I guarantee you, if you pay attention to what these two very smart gentlemen are saying, you will improve. Without a shadow of a doubt. I'm very convinced with that. So stay tuned. I think we're going to have some agreements. I think we're going to have some disagreements. But I think more importantly, people are going to learn. And men specifically are going to improve. Ladies too, by the way. Before we get into introducing you guys, we have to give a shout out to the lovely Natalia Del Valle in the house.
Hello.
She's going to be moderating the chat. She's going to be answering your
questions.
Questions, super chat.
Our magician's assistant.
Yes.
Exactly. Anything you want to add that the people should know before we get started? Go ahead, Natalia.
Of course, I would like to say welcome. I'm excited for today's podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the channel, Valuetainment Money, and get some good questions going. And make sure you guys type the questions, right? So we can get you guys the answer you're looking for.
And drop those super chats.
Yeah, super chats, of course, because
chats.
we will be reading them throughout
Yes.
the podcast today. So make sure you guys get those, but subscribe.
Thank you. Subscribe. I appreciate that. And smash the like. If you're a fan of either one of these, we want to know who brought you here. Are you a fan of Rollo and that's how you ended up here? Are you a fan of Ruslan and that's how you ended up here? Who do you think is, favored? We want your opinions. Natalia, you're going to be reading this.
Yes.
But we usually answer super chats at the end. Let's do it throughout.
Okay.
Let's kind of mix it up. We
Like
want to get
that.
your opinion. We don't want you waiting 2 hours to do this. We have a hard out at, I believe, 5:10 Ruslan's got to catch a flight. You know, when you're flying that private jet life, you got to kind of got to do your thing. But with that being said, I think I've done enough talking right now. Let's get into who these two gentlemen are. So let's start with this. This is obviously where money and relationships meet. Why don't we start with defining your relationship status? Both of you are married, and then how do you make money? Let's just start with that. Just basic concepts: financial status, marriage status, and we'll go from there. You offered to let Ruslan go first. Let's start with you, Ruslan.
Yeah, Ruslan. I'm 37. Been married 14 years. Together 18 years, and got 2 kids, and make money primarily. Originally, it was music. 2015, did music full time for a couple years. Portion of my revenue still comes from that stuff like sync licensing, DistroKid, Spotify. Probably past 2 years, transitioned more over to YouTube. Revenue streams like Facebook, like Patreon, merchandising, that sort of stuff.
How long you been all in on the influencer YouTuber game?
2020 is when it tipped at the end of 2020. So almost 2 years full time where that surpassed all the other
And that is your
streams.
full-time career right now. You're not rapping as much as you used to, nothing like that?
I still make music, but like I did a show earlier this month in Boston, but no, not as much because it just makes sense to fly to do small shows.
Rollo.
Sure. Let's see. I am 54 years old. I've been married for 26 years as of July 20th. So that's been a while. And
happy anniversary.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you very much.
Give a shout out to your wives, gentlemen.
Yeah, there we go. Shout out to Mrs. T.
No name, no nothing.
Mrs. T.
Just Mrs. T. Mr. T, as you were, sir.
Let's see. So 26 years. I have a daughter who is 24 years old. As far as money is concerned, I used to work in casino marketing. After that, I got into doing wine and spirits. I did that for quite some time. I am the author of 5 books, The Rational Male being the premier one that was published back in 2013. And thinking that was going to be the only book I ever wrote. But then here we are 5 books later. So as far as money is concerned, I made a lot of my money just sort of in the private sector. I went from sort of being like the art director of a casino marketing to doing the gig economy, because we kind of progressed into that. It made more sense. And then while I was doing that, I was participating in a lot of what is now known as the manosphere, like forums. Then we get to blogs, and we get to broadcasting, and now we have social media and YouTube and everything else. So I have my own channel. Everybody probably already knows that. I've got the Rational Male. I got the Rational Male Clips. Both of which, by the way, are past 100,000 now. So I celebrated that for the Clips channel. But it's like, that's to me like the money that I make off of that. I never really started to, like, my intent was not to become an influencer. It's just I did that for engagement, and I was working with Pat Campbell, God rest his soul, and he said, you need to get into this, you need to start doing this. So we were doing a terrestrial radio show. I got into doing this, and it's always been about engagement more than like the money side of it. But as far as money's concerned, I have residuals from brands of liquor that I've worked with, but right now in 2020, once again, that sort of killed off my promo life. And then I started doing this full time and started being the personality full time.
But on YouTube, you've been doing YouTube how long now?
I've been doing YouTube since 2017, the latter half of 2017.
Gotcha. So one of the things that always fascinates me about YouTube is, like, unless you're OG YouTube, which, what is OG, 2010? Most people have just only been doing this 3 to 5 years, right? Full time.
It's new media. Yeah, it's engagement media.
We had dinner last night. We talked about engagement media. By the way, both of you guys, I think we're culminating here on the Soscast, but you were on Jedediah's show yesterday. And unbiasedly, I'm saying that's probably the best show that she's ever done here at Valuetainment. The 3-hour marathon. Yeah. Respect. I don't know. Did any of you guys have to go to the bathroom at all?
No. Well, she did, actually, at the end of the night. Maybe Natalia did. I don't know.
And we had dinner last night with your friend Miguel and Vinny. We had a great time with Pat as well at dinner. And then you interviewed Pat yesterday.
That's correct.
How did that go?
Great.
Yeah. And then when's that coming out live?
The first part's out now.
I saw the clips already.
Yeah, first part's out now.
So it's a kind of Valuetainment family right now. All right. Well, with that being said, let's get into this conversation/debate. Now, I think it's fair to say there's one thing you guys both agree upon. Let's start with this, is that you both want to see men improve. Yep. You want to see men do better. I think that's fair to say, right? No objections there. So let's just clear the air there. There's a lot that you will agree upon, I'm sure. But let's also start with what you disagree upon. Can we do with that? And then, by the way, I'm going to kind of moderate this. I'm going to let you get your chance to speak. You get your chance to speak, kind of almost like a presidential debate, the state of manhood. And if at any point, it goes off the rails, this is where I'll have to be the DUI drunk driver to just bring us back onto the road. So let's start with where you guys disagree, right? So I know you guys have different philosophies on, how men should act. So let's just start with that. Let's get into where you guys disagree. Is there something specifically when you're like, Rollo, I hear your brother, I hear what you're saying, but I full on disagree with you on this? Is there something that stands out about that?
There's quite a few things. But before we get there,
sure.
I call you my brother from another mother. We get compliments that we look alike. Something me and Rollo agree on that I didn't know we would agree on. And as I was reading the end of his book is we both believe in Jesus. And that was really cool. So Rollo says that he is a Christian. He is also a follower of Christ. That's how he described himself. And that he believes in the divinity and physical resurrection of Jesus, who is the Christ as per the Abrahamic telling. So I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
I read the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
I read the whole book, and I wanted to honor you in that way because.
Well, let me explain something really quickly to you. Like when you and I had our exchange on Twitter, thank you for doing me the courtesy, doing me the solid of reading that you're reading the book, because that right there saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
So when people tell me, oh, just give me the elevator pitch of the red pill, give me the elevator pitch of what you're talking about, it's like it's impossible to do that because it's so comprehensive. So it's easier for me. Like people criticize me for like linking old essays when they ask me questions. It's like, just read this essay. I already covered this. And they get really pissed off at me for doing that because they want something like a sound bite. They want some sort of little info bite.
Well, everyone wants cliff notes. You don't want to have to like that. Respect to you, brother. Like, how long did it take you to read that book?
Longer than I'd like to admit.
Okay.
But you actually read it instead of listening to it on Audible.
The Rational Mail as well. So So I think reading the book, I don't think we need to go over what the red pill or the manospheres. I think everyone here knows what being red pill aware is. And I think that it was interesting to me because when I saw your reaction to my conversation with Hafiz, it was framed as if I was the ideologue, religious guy with no care for empirical evidence or data, which is just not true. And that's what I want to kind of get into is that, one, we both believe in magical thinking, per your definition. We both believe in a risen man who died and physically rose from the grave.
I acknowledge the idea that magical thinking is both a positive and a negative.
Yes. Okay. So we agree that it's a positive. We agree.
For those of us that aren't clear on this, magical thinking.
It's a way he frames religion in the book.
The way that I talk about magical thinking in the book is this: is that there is in fact, I'm fairly sure, I don't know the actual name of it, but there's like sort of an element to the human brain that has the capacity to think outside of it's like taking the red pill, right? It's like, well, are we in a matrix kind of thing? Yep. It's this want for answers that end up becoming sort of metaphysical as opposed to the physical. And I make the point in the book here is like our reality. God, boy, I'm gonna get real existential today. Our reality is defined by like our sight, our taste, our touch, or what we can like register in our physical senses, right? But we also have a part of our brain that says, well, maybe there's something like there's a form of energy. There's something that we don't have the particular organ for, so that we can sense that particular form of energy, whatever it is. Like sound is an energy, like light. Like when we're looking at things, that's an energy, right? And I don't mean like woo-woo energy. I mean like in the sense that there's something else that could exist that we don't know exists, like say infrared spectrum, or like, helium is the example I give in the book. Is like helium, it was mathematically proven before we knew what exactly it was. And so, but it's you can't smell it, you can't taste it, but it is there, and we put it in balloons for your kid's party, right? So the fact that we have the ability to think outside of what our senses are telling us, that to me is like imagination. And I make the point in the book, by the way, is that there's the quote that I want to say it was Albert Einstein, but he said, what's more important, like imagination or knowledge? And everybody always says, oh, imagination, right? I think it's both. Both of them are like one is incomplete without the other. Totally. And so that imagination part is what I refer to in the book as magical thinking, in the sense, and that leads us to religion. That leads us to thinking outside of what we can physically interpret.
And we're both creatives. And
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
and we're both married.
Yeah, but
We both
I should have added that to my bio. It's like I play in a band as well.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, we both come from,
All right,
from a background.
Well, I know we're doing a little kumbaya here right now, but let me get back to my question.
Let me get to the point.
Hold on,
Let me
guys.
get to the
Well,
point.
I felt like we need
specifically-
to define
I
what
said-
magical thinking is.
I got that. And I said, there's going to be a lot you guys agree upon, okay? You're both married. You have kids. You want the most best
Yeah.
for men. You both talked about religion. You wrote a whole book about religion, which we're going to talk about religion towards the end of this. We're not going to lead with that. But all that's great. But I asked you a very specific question. What do you disagree with Rollo on?
So we agree on a lot. What we disagree on is the biggest thing that I think is most problematic is marriage. That you can't endorse marriage.
Not now.
And I think that if we look at what is the optimal environment to bring children into this environment, into this world. If my buddy Sauce wanted to have kids, do you want kids?
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully we could agree that the optimal environment is to be in a nuclear family where the man and the woman are in the household together.
Socially enforced monogamy has been the bedrock of Western society for a long time.
100%. So we agree on that. However, the red pill speaks very low of marriage. You guys have a very, in my opinion, a very skewed view of marriage based on 66% of marriages are filed by women, on and so forth.
70, but half of marriages end in divorce right now, at least in Western, but statistically speaking, you got a 50-50 chance of having a quote-unquote successful marriage, whatever that is defined as. And then, of course, it's 70 to 80% of
Okay,
marriages.
your book
depends
says,
on whose numbers you... I was trying to be as conservative as I could
Your book
be.
was 60 to 70.
Yeah,
according to
that's
your
why
book.
I was trying to be conservative with that.
So if the optimal environment is for kids, Sauce One's kids, is to be married in the same household.
With a husband and a wife.
With a husband and a
with
wife.
a man and a woman, however you define it.
Husband and a wife is fine. The painting of marriage is not helpful, in my opinion, based on what we know about marriage. So marriage is 40 to 50% end in divorce. What's left out is kind of this character of divorce. You do 90% of the work. She puts in 10%, and then she could file divorce at any time, and then you have to split all the proceeds. There's a lot you leave out there, Rollo. A whole lot. For starters, divorce highly correlated with income. The less you make, the more likely you are to get divorced. This is a fact. I got sources.
And it's commonly known that like one of the top two issues in divorce is or breakups is money.
It's money.
So, okay.
It's money. And Dave Ramsey would say that number one reason people get divorced is money fights money problems. Okay, so one, we know that the more people make, the least likely they are to get divorced. That's a fact. With regards about 250K, you flatten out, I think, at about a 25% rate. So one, that's omitted from the fact. And then the response goes, well, alimony. Okay, if the average man, median income for the average man, take away the bottom and the top outliers, is about $60,000 a year. Okay, average is about $40,000 when you got the outliers. Okay, people aren't paying alimony on those types of salaries. So the average person is most optimally to thrive. And I can give you all the statistics about how being single, you're highly to be suicidal, depression, all these unhealthy, lazy, all these different things. The optimal environment for a man is to be in a marriage. Okay. So
For kids, you mean?
For kids?
For his mental health. And
Okay.
again, and I got the studies. We could look at the studies if you want to look at the studies. Suicide rate, depression, unhealth, all kinds of different things. It's awful if you're a man in your 40s. So the red pill is framing marriage as this caricature that maybe on the contractual side there are outliers where women take advantage of men, but the average case is that if you know how to make money, if you understand some of the game side of things, I would say there's some utility. And I think what you guys do a good job is you stir people away from some type of women that are, in my opinion, selection biased. Sauce, you got married before, right?
Briefly, yes.
Yeah. And what did you do to protect yourself in that marriage?
Oh, well, I had a prenup.
You had a prenup, right? Dave Ramsey recommends prenups for anybody that's independently wealthy before they go into a marriage.
I
Dave
had
Ramsey
money,
is
she didn't. Correct.
You got a prenup, and I protected you.
Yes.
Correct? I got buddies that have covenantal marriages per your book. Got a couple buddies. They got married. They kept the state out of it. They protected themselves, right? And so on and so forth. So I think primarily this character of marriage, man, is I think very toxic. On top of which you go on to glorify how being a virgin is ideal in a marriage, which is
For the woman?
for both people.
For the man, too?
For the man, we could correlate
Yes,
body
Adam.
counts.
You could.
Hold
you
on,
could,
what?
You could.
Yes,
We could start the
Adam.
show,
we could
gentlemen.
correlate body counts.
This is where I'm going to start weighing here, gentlemen.
We could correlate body counts to
Yeah.
less happiness in a sex life. The higher, more partners you have, the less likely you are to be happy in a marriage. sexually. That's proven. I think
If you don't know what you're missing, if ignorance is bliss.
100%. So, and on top of it, and this is the part I'm probably most bummed about, and you identify as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, somebody, I'm bummed, Rollo, that you left out all the statistics about how unlikely you are to get divorced if you are a person of faith who practices their faith. Now, I know you're going to say that's the no true Scotsman argument. It's not. If you believe in earning wealth, you're going to do certain things to practice earning wealth. If you believe the Lakers are the best basketball team, you're going to wear a jersey and go to a game occasionally. If you profess to be a Catholic or a Christian, you do things that show that, in that you go to church, you pray, you do certain things. So when we factor all of these different variables together, when we factor in, hey, if you make more than the average person, hey, if you have a great sex life, if you maybe have a prenup, if you have independent wealth, if you're a person of faith, the divorce rate plummets way, way, way off the ground, lower body count. And that's the part, Rollo, that I'm like, man, this is such a caricature of marriage that I was really bummed out that you as a Christian didn't put any of this in there, with the caveat, and I appreciated you putting a virgin thing in there because I thought that was fair of you. And that's the part where I go, man, if the optimal environment for our buddy Sauce is to one day get married, to have kids, why would we not tell him that? Why would we keep this information from him? Why would we omit this?
Is that your goal? Is that your goal to do that? That's first and foremost, is like, what do you want as a man right now? Because right now we're in the 21st century. We're 21 years into, 21 and a half years into the 21st century, okay? We're still clinging to old order ideals. We're still clinging to a 20th century, actually probably like an 18th century ideal when it comes to monogamy. We are not looking at it from a post-sexual revolution. And I'm saying for better or worse. I'm not saying this is, okay, I don't deal in shoulds, I deal in is. Okay?
But you do, though, because you prescribe very specific things in your book, The Rational Male. We can get into that later.
I understand
that. But you do prescribe things, Rollo.
I make a point to be as objective. I know it's impossible to be entirely objective.
Right. You believe in objective truth.
I have an obligation to it.
But you prescribe certain things.
I don't prescribe anything. I don't.
Okay, we can come back to that.
So let me explain something.
Let him get this out.
Let me explain a couple
of
things here. I'm not in the business of making men better men. I'm in the business of giving men the tools that they need to make better choices, to become better men themselves. I'm not trying to be a cult leader. I'm not trying to be any kind of. I'm not. I told this to Jedediah yesterday. Is like, I bristle at the idea of being an influencer, because to me it's like, who are you influencing and what gives you the authority to be that quote unquote influencer as it is right now?
But let me just understand what you just said right there, and then I'll let you continue. It's almost like cause and effect. You said, I'm not here to help men be better. I'm here to give them the education to be better. Well, it's the same thing.
Tomato, Rollo. You were prescribing certain activities.
There's a big difference.
So
I'll explain to you why. Okay, I do not have a step-by-step program that says, follow this template and you will have a great fucking life. I have nothing like that.
Neither do I. Neither does Sauce. Neither does PPD.
I'm not saying that you do. I'm saying that that's my approach when I write any book, when I do any show, when I write any essay. It's not about, here's what you should do. Here's what is happening. What are you going to do with this information? Okay. It's like fire. Okay. You can use fire to heat your home and cook your food, or you can use fire to burn your neighbor's house down, and you can go and set your neighbors on fire as well.
We're not endorsing that, by the way.
Please don't. But what I'm saying is that, like, it's not the actual red pill that is the problem. It is, how is that being used? So when people like come at me and they say the red pill is about this, and I'll say, no, that's black pill doomers. That's the MGTOW side of this thing. That's the MRA side of this thing. When we started this whole the whole podcast here, it's like, well, what's your philosophy? This is your philosophy. That's your philosophy. There is no philosophy of the red pill. The red pill is a praxeology. I need to set that out right now.
And you said praxeology,
and people are going to come at me because they think it's strictly related to like economics and stuff like that. But praxeology is basically the study of behavior with the intent of showing that behavior is something that it has a purpose or a latent function to it, kind of thing. So people behave in such a way as this is how it works, kind of thing. So when I am talking about marriage, and you're not the first person to throw this at me, is that they say, well, Rollo, how can you be red pill because you're married, or how can you be married because you're red pill, right? And so I'm always stuck in the middle of all of that, because I have a great, by all estimates, I have a fantastic ideal marriage. For most guys would say it's an ideal marriage for 26 years. I have a kid, right? So when especially from the traditional conservative side of things, they come at me and say, well, how can you be so down on marriage? I'm not down on marriage. In fact, I make that point in religion. I said, I'm not down on marriage. I'm down on how we do it now. Okay. As I said before, monogamy pair bonded monogamy, however you want to define it. Like, remember, it's Judeo-Christianity doesn't have a monopoly on marriage. Okay, marriage has been a thing between men and women for a very, very long time. Whether it's in Muslim culture or it's in Jewish culture or it's in like even Asian culture, you can go back to feudal Japan and find people getting married. Okay, so they had nothing to do with Abrahamic religions, but they're still pairing off like that. So there's something innate in us that says, hey, we're better together than we are apart. Okay, where it is functionally, evolutionarily advantageous for human males and human females to compromise their mating strategies, come together and be parentally invested in that quote unquote family unit, which of course becomes the first tribe that you have. And we can talk about tribalism later on. So I'm not against marriage. I'm against the way we do it now in a post-sexual revolution.
Explain that, because
but that's a sociological phenomenon. Like that's social culture that's dysfunctional.
Yeah,
right.
That's
why
I
don't follow culture, Rollo. I build culture.
Do you have a legal contract between you and your wife?
I do have a legal contract between
that's part of the culture.
Yes, that's a part of the culture because we chose to be that. I can get into why that is if you want me to. But when you're talking about people just brainlessly following culture, right? Like I get it. That sounds like everyone's plugged into the matrix and acting like an idiot. I'm with you. The issue is that most people who want to be successful at anything aren't going to follow culture. Okay? If I come to you and I say, Adam, man, I want to double my income this year. You're going to give me a bunch of countercultural examples of how to do that. Correct?
Countercultural?
Don't go out and party every night. Don't play video games.
Don't take on student loan debt. Don't just do the typical 9 to 5.
All of that is countercultural.
The very fact that you're an influencer disqualifies any of that. The very fact that do you make more money as a rapper or do you make more money as an influencer right now?
Right now as a YouTuber.
Then you're following culture.
Okay, but
even as a rapper, you are.
No. But I'm building
that.
Culture.
Why is that?
Well, I'm saying that our idea of what it is we want to do, our passions in life, and everything is like I rail against social constructionism. I get that part of it, right? But the very fact that we're even on this show with all these cameras around us, or Patrick's over here,
you're saying that he'd be more counterculture if he said, "I don't do social media."
If he was counterculture, he'd be in a punk band.
No. I said the things that it requires to be successful at anything is countercultural, Rollo. And so, as a person that's creative, I have to make countercultural decisions to be not the average.
But you have to work within that culture.
I do have to do that. But let me give you an example. You mentioned something in your book about Christians jacking culture, right? And you talked about what was the Striper band and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
it's the Christian kosher.
Christian kosher. I like that. I like that a lot. But you made this one really example, and I think this kind of speaks to this. You reference J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings influencing Dungeons and Dragons, and then you also reference C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, which is to you a spinoff. J.R.R. Tolkien led C.S. Lewis to faith. J.R.R. Tolkien who's a Christian, built Lord of the Rings and led culture that then the world, Dungeons and Dragons, and non-Christians followed. So I think you miss how much I think is driven by art creativity within modern music, within Lord of the Rings and all this sorts of things. That your example was often that like that was led by a Christian who led C.S. Lewis, and he was building culture. And I'm saying there's other examples of people doing that all throughout history. We could talk about modern pop music, modern rock and roll. All of that is rooted in the Black church experience. Rhythm and blues comes out of that. So the church has always built culture. Right now, it's not looking good. I'd agree with you that in some ways it's not looking good. But to be successful at anything, we have to be countercultural with our choices while we engage culture to further our messages.
But real quick, how does this break down to the marriage? Because we were going on marriage for I don't want to skip over the marriage.
I'll explain why that is. Okay, because I make the point in my fourth book in religion is that there's a difference between covenant marriage and contractual marriage. Okay, so I'm going to throw this out as an example. My friend Abu American is a Muslim. Okay. I believe at present he has 4 wives, maybe 3. Okay, now
good work, homie.
Yeah. So, but that's in Muslim culture, you can have up to 4 wives. The polygamy is still a thing for
certain parts,
but not in America.
Yeah,
not America.
But not no, because the culture of America says you can only have 1 wife. You're only limited to 1 wife, right?
It sounds like a lot of headaches.
But their religion allows them to have up to 4 wives. So what do I choose? Do I choose the state or do I choose my religion, right? So you've got that balance.
You said
there.
The covenant of marriage or the government?
So his marriages are based on not on legal contracts, not on like marriage contracts. It's like, do you believe in my faith? Yeah, okay. You'll be my wife and so will she and so will she and so will she, right? And so they can't legally I believe he lives in Germany, so I can't really do that here in the U.S. because that goes against polygamy laws, right? But he can do it in another country, and so because things are a little bit different there. But what their marriage, and right up until the point where we started to turn marriage and religion into franchise and into a commercial enterprise, you didn't need a marriage contract back in medieval Renaissance era Europe. It was just like before God and your friends, and everybody got a ring, we're good to go.
So when did that start here in America or in the West?
I mean, certainly, like I would presume around the Industrial Revolution or somewhere around there.
So in the 1700s, give or take.
What I'm saying is, like, I don't endorse marriage in the sense that it is done right now. I really wish. That's one of the reasons I don't use my marriage as an example for like proof of concept for like, just do what I do, guys, and you'll be able to have this great life.
Right.
I never do that because you're not me. You're not my wife. You don't have the same circumstances that I do. So it would be irresponsible of me to go and say, here's a template for you to follow and you'll be just like Rollo Tomassi. I would not do that. I want those guys to build their own lives and say, hey, I'm the author of my own life. I'm not a Tomassi man or a Jordan Peterson man or whoever man.
So help me clarify this then. And maybe I'm misunderstanding you because I don't want to straw man your position. So you've been married 26 years. Praise God. That's amazing. I've been married 14 years. We're entering that phase where we've been together longer than we've been apart.
26?
26, 14 together, 18.
Wow.
Okay. So that's amazing, right?
Guys, I made it almost a couple years, bro. So respect to you guys. Okay.
You believe in objective truth. I'm assuming you're unsure about objective morality. You say morality is social.
I think certain aspects of morality make sense and certain aspects do not make sense, or they seem contrived at least.
That's fair. Okay. There's certain things that we accept as moral that may not always be moral. That's fair. We can get into the pro-choice side of things. That's fair, right? Because that's women's choice is moral. Sure. But why not preach what you practice? Why, like, as a man, I would want to know what you did to get to 26 years of marriage. You say you have the ideal marriage. It's a very interesting language to describe that, ideal marriage. You have a daughter. Why would you not give us some game on that?
Because the way that we do marriage now, like people ask me all this time, they say, Rollo, if you weren't married, would you get married now? I would say absolutely not. If God forbid I found myself a widower or whatever, tomorrow, I would not get married in this present state. I'm not saying the institution, the idea of marriage is a bad idea. Yeah. You probably read this as well. We are better together than we are apart. We are innate, evolved, natural complements to one another.
It's not good for a man to be alone.
But very specifically, why would you not get married today?
Because the way that we do it now, and this is exactly goes back to your point where everybody goes, well, alimony this, and I'll lose half my stuff, and I think, by the way, I think that's kind of like a specious argument from guys who don't want to get married.
Really, who don't even make enough money to pay alimony
to worry about, but they also have to pay child support. They also get into bad situations.
Child support has nothing to do with being married. You could have a one night stand with a baby mama and pay child support.
I understand, but when we talk about like prenups, the prenup saved me. Yeah, did you have any kids? No. But
kids.
If you had kids, you would still be paying a form of child support and a form of alimony that goes up. And again, I can get into the divorce machine. There's lots of like.
But Rollo, do you really think that much has changed in 26 years in terms of the legalities of things? Because I don't think much has changed.
No, they haven't. But I would say.
So did you make a bad decision 26 years ago?
No, not at all. But the thing is this: is that it is
the culture has changed.
The culture has most definitely changed. I like getting into like. I'll tell you what my dad said. I asked my dad one time. I said, why did you get married to my mom? My dad was like a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, and my mom was a born-again Christian. She later became Catholic and everything. And I'm like, what on earth possessed you guys to get married together? And my dad said this. He was like looking at me. He says, it seemed like a good idea at the time. and thank God, my brother and I were produced as a result of that. And I am who I am because of my father and because of my mother as well. But the long and the short of it is, I understand the institution. I understand why marriage exists. I understand why premarital, prohibitions against premarital sex, being or even prearranged marriages for that. I understand why those exist. I don't think that they are tenable in the 20th or 21st century at this state. I understand why they're there, and I understand the mechanics behind them. Yep. However, expecting, especially in modern day society where like marriage rates are at like 5.1 per 1,000 right now, you're looking at a divorce rate that's fallen off a cliff. Yeah, because no one's getting married right now, and the age of first marriage is getting pushed further and further into our early 30s. primarily because of a post-sexual revolution mentality with respect to monogamy.
And which I think is trash, by the way. I think the post-sexual revolution is bad.
Because it is, like, as far as best practices are concerned, like, if you have all these tools, if you understand, you have this database, and you have all this education about intersexual dynamics, how do you use this? What do you do with that? That's really not the purview of the red pill. And I don't know, like, where, like, there's a lot of people who want to be red pill voices right now. A lot of them come back to my work. That's all they do. And they're looking at mine as sort of like the source material for wherever they're going to take it and go with it. So if you look at Fresh and Fit, you look at like Andrew Tate, you look at even Kevin Samuels, it's all derivatives of stuff that I have done since really 2002, 2004.
And this is something you disagree with Kevin Samuels on, though.
I would,
because Kevin Samuels still prescribed marriage. Rest in peace, Kevin Samuels.
Okay, so here's the thing. Would I prescribe marriage? I would if we had some form of marriage reform. Okay, if there was some sort of, I
like where this is going. Rollo Tomassi just said he prescribes marriage.
I would prescribe marriage.
What would you put for
some reform?
Okay, if there was,
lay that out.
Okay, what benefit? And I'll throw this out again. I always ask this: what benefit is there for a man inside of marriage that he can't get outside of marriage? You're not married. Like you, right now, it's like you looking and trying to find some guy or someone right now, some girl, woman, not guy. Sorry,
throw that out there.
Sorry.
Look for women.
Come to church. Come to church.
You're trying to find someone. It's like you're going to have, especially at your value, who you are right now. You're in a position of sexual selectivity that most men are never going to be able to enjoy in their lifetime. So you're like, okay, I want to have kids. I want to find somebody that I can settle down with.
Yeah.
But the downside risks of that, and I'm not just talking about marriage, I'm also talking about the follow-on downstream effects of making a bad choice, right? You've heard this before. I'm sure I forget. I think maybe it was Warren Buffett who said, the most important decision you can make in your life is like who you're going to marry. You're going to pair yourself
talks about that all the time,
right? So it's not just about you and the woman. It's about the families you created, the families that come together on either side, and your grandchildren and your friends and your dogs and everything else. That's sort of that downstream effect. It hinges on one thing: intersexual dynamics. It hinges on being able to come together and having that knowledgeable database. I'm not against marriage. I'm against marriage in the sense that it's like, didn't know it was coming, didn't know the risks, didn't know this, didn't know all the downstream effects that could come from it, because you have this romantic ideal in your head that, oh, she's the one. And most guys live in a state of sexual scarcity. Yeah. So the first girl that gets off with him, suddenly she's the one, ordained from God to be his wife for forever.
Now this is where
final thoughts, because we have like 20 more topics, so we're not going to spend an hour on marriage, guys.
So, do you think there's any selection bias, though, in the way you're describing some of these women in terms of the culture?
I don't necessarily think first of all, I think if there's a bias, it's a post-sexual revolution bias for the last 4 generations where we're at.
For some women, not all women.
I would say that in some effects, all women, and some effects, some women. Okay, so I made this point with Jedediah yesterday. Is like, if you were born after, say, like 1960,
You're
right now, you have had gynocentric feminist ideals planted into your brain that you think are just given truths. You think that they're self-evident truths. Whereas if you were born in a generation prior to the sexual revolution, it would be like, you're like, what are you talking about?
Right, that's fair.
So where's the sexual revolution? What's the
it's about 1965.
Yeah, 1965.
Right when hormonal birth control was
all that
presented.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
hippies, Woodstock, that kind of was all in that time frame.
So you may prescribe marriage with some reforms. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I did say that monogamy was the bedrock of Western civilization.
And we agree on that.
Absolutely. How that is formalized is really kind of particular to the society, the religion, the guys.
Sure. And so I would take the stance that I want to tip the scales as much in Sauce's favor as I possibly can if he wants to get married.
We're going to get you married, Sauce.
I appreciate it. I mean, you two by my side.
He wants to have kids. So
that's all.
So you say, so that's great. Now, what I would call your prescriptions, I think, are where it gets problematic, and you probably know where I'm going. You got spinning plates, right? And then you have don't wait for sex if she makes you wait for sex.
Talked about it yesterday with Jedediah.
So how does that work in your mind as someone that's prescribing a lot of non-consensual dating? I mean, to the point, Rollo, where you go on and you tell people, push out the girls that aren't going to let you smash for weekdays, and the ones that are going to give you intimacy, smash, hang out with them. And I got the quote right here: hang with them on.
Is that a quote from the Bible?
No, this is the Bible of Rollo.
The Bible.
Save your weekends for women who've had proven an interest in you, sexual, and relegate those who haven't to Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then you say don't ever wait for sex. If a woman makes you wait for sex,
I don't say that is not what that says. By the way, I don't say. Okay, it's here's the rule. Okay, Iron Rule of Tomassi number 3 is this: if a woman makes you wait for sex, the sex is never worth the wait. That, and I was explaining this to Jedediah yesterday. Okay, this is the number one thing people try to come at me.
If she wants to screw you, she'll screw you. She'll show that she wants to screw you.
It's not about the sex. You also say, if you look at the end of that chapter, I also make I put some caveats at the end of that where I'm saying, like, look, if your religious convictions are such that you're like, I don't believe in premarital sex, because most guys who are reading this, most guys on planet Earth right now, they're not waiting to have sex. Most women are not waiting to have sex. I am writing for I'm writing in a time where that is the reality right now. Also, it's not to say that everybody is like that. There are guys who are going to wait for sex. There are women who are going to wait for sex. Got it. Understood. That's why I put the caveat at the end of that saying, like, if this is your conviction, this chapter, this rule, whatever, is not about the sex part. It is about establishing genuine desire, because that entire rule is all about is this woman really into me?
Well,
is she
I like genuine desire.
Does she have mitigating?
Here's what I want to know, gentlemen. Hold on. Do you believe? I want to get your answer, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. I promise you that. Do you believe you should only have sex with one woman and wait till marriage?
Yes.
That's your belief?
Yes. And based on the empirical data, virgins are happiest in marriage. People who wait to get married are the happiest. People with the lowest body counts are the most fulfilled.
So my ignorance is bliss.
So my issue, sure. But my issue is when Rollo with one sentence is saying, I'm a Christian and being a virgin is great. So, and 70% of virgins are in church. And at the same time, we're creating an environment based on increasing women's body counts and increasing men's body counts, which is going to be counterintuitive to when they want to settle down and get married.
You're reading that as a prescription, okay?
But how is spinning plates not a prescription, Rollo?
I'll tell you.
But just so I'm clear, do you believe in that? What he believes in, that you should be a virgin and wait till marriage?
What's your personal belief?
Belief is this. Do I think that that's a best practice? I think it makes great sense. I think that is untenable in the 21st century. Hell, it's untenable in the 20th century, which is why it is a rule.
Hold on, you think it's untenable for people to delay sexual gratification?
Yes, absolutely.
Based on what?
Because men need sex and women need sex as well.
And you can't wait for 6 months or a year court?
Okay.
What do you mean 6 months to a year?
A lot of the folks I know who are getting married in their early 20s, they date, they get married. We're talking about a 12 to 18 month window. They're married. Most of them are virgins. They go on, they build lives together. Kevin Samuels will call this an IKEA marriage, right? They build lives together. And then by the time they're 30s, they're worth multiple six figures.
All right, so 98% of people on planet Earth don't wait for sex before marriage.
Yeah, but
99%
we're not talking about if they're waiting. We're talking about creating content and material that's increasing their body counts. That's what your content does.
Here's where we're going to let the audience have a chance to weigh in on this. Guys, Natalia, let's get some commentary. Do you believe in having sex, premarital sex? I want to know from the audience, right? First question. Let's see what they say. No, not you.
Jeez.
I know that you're a virgin and you're waiting till marriage. I know that. Sorry, gentlemen.
Yes.
And then
wait. Was that? Are you being sarcastic?
I'm being very sarcastic.
Okay, fair
enough. But I'd like to get from our audience. Do you understand two things? Are you waiting for marriage to have sex? And then do you believe in the institute of marriage? Let's see some comments and we'll come back to you on that super chat. Guys, we're going to move on to the next topic. I've allowed you to kind of get in on Rollo, and I think it would be unfair if I didn't ask you the exact same question. Is there something that you specifically disagree with that Ruslan talks about? I know he hasn't written a book, at least I don't believe.
Not yet, which by the way, you have me inspired to potentially write books. This man's written 5.
Actually, that was my only beef was I really wanted to have this conversation with you. Actually, even before this, it's just like I'm like at least go in knowing what it is that I'm talking about, because what I think happens is like guys get into like the influencer sphere, and you're also an example of this too. Sorry to say, but like when guys, like your show was primarily about money until you met me, until I ruined your life, right? Until I came in.
Technically,
here, right?
No. Technically, I had already done 5 relationship shows. Then you showed up, and I was like, "Oh, there's actually a fucking handbook for this."
Everybody wants a piece of the manosphere right now. Jedediah wants a piece of the manosphere. Everybody wants something of it, and it's easy pickings for a lot of people who are sort of this moralist bent right now, because they hear Kevin Samuels talk about things and they lose their minds. When Kevin Samuels passed away, it was nothing but hate from women. nothing but hate from women. I mean, to the point where they were saying this is a gift from God that he died on Mother's Day, right?
Man.
And so I'm watching this. I'm going, damn, that is a lot of vitriol.
So are you basically saying that
Well,
Ruslan is sort of using this as
it's
opportunity to create
it's
views?
Topic du jour is what it is, okay? And not just him. I'd like a lot of people are
No, but I
doing
asked you
this right now.
specifically your problem with Ruslan.
My problem is this is like speaking from a position of ignorance. Okay, like it's, and I brought this up with Jedediah as well. Like Jedediah will say like, oh yeah, I watched like 2 30-second clips of Fresh and Fit, and I don't know much about them. She prefaces the whole thing about that, but let me tell you everything about them. And I'm like, well, why should we listen to you if you're already prefacing this with the fact that you're speaking from a position of ignorance?
I'm not ignorant. No, these are two questions here. Would you consider Jedediah ignorant on that?
She is very much ignorant on the a lot of people are, but they want to jump in because it triggers this kind of moralistic belief set where it's like, well, that's not what I believe, and let me start talking about things rather than making. Thank you for reading my books, because that was the first thing I said. I said, at least read the book so you know where I'm coming from before we have this discussion. I'm glad you did. Thank you very much.
Okay. So go ahead. Was there a question?
No. Well, my point is, it's not even so much. He's done a lot of content on this. You've done stuff with our friend Hafiz. You've done multiple. I don't think you're ignorant to this.
Let me back into it, because I think that's a fair point. And it sounds, if she watched 2 videos and started making a bunch of anti-red pill content, I would agree with you. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. That's if that's
separate
what
issue,
happened, right?
We're talking
people
about
want to do pick and pull. They're like, I agree with this and I don't agree with this, and then so therefore it's good.
So here's what happened. I listen to my audience. I don't know if you're engaged in your comments. I listen to my audience. I go into the DMs. And so whatever people are asking me, and what do you think about this, then I'll check it out. And I won't just watch Instagram clips. I don't even watch short form content. I go watch long form content, try to understand. So what happened was people reached out to me and said, what do you think about Kevin Samuels? Kevin Samuels.
That's where it started.
That's where it started.
How long ago?
When did you watch? Last May-ish.
Somewhere around.
Yeah, last 2021.
He passed away
in May. Passed away this past May. I was reacting to his stuff a year before that, like last summer.
Just from a timeline horizon, you've been researching or looking into the red pill community for a little over a year now.
So I checked,
and you've been doing this for...
I've been in the manosphere for 20 years.
20 years, okay.
And so what happened was, when I started hearing some of this stuff, it took me back to middle school. I grew up in San Diego in the 90s. Got arrested at age 11, and I was around a bunch of guys. What we were into was these books called by Iceberg Slim, called Pimp. And it was a lot of the same type of language and a lot of the same thinking coming from Iceberg Slim that influenced a lot of my close friends to go on to be pimps. And they started pimping, and they started making a lot of money doing that and buying houses, all that kind of stuff. And then a lot of these guys ended up getting arrested and going to jail for a long time. But the ideologies were very similar. And I was like, man, this is so weird that I'm seeing some of this stuff, to the point where I was, I'm in middle school in 97, 98 around these guys. And then this followed people into the early 2000s, where people were, I don't know if you remember this, Snoop Dogg, Bishop Magic Wand, they're dressing up as pimps. And
of course, if you ever saw the movie Old School, like, bring your green hat, bro.
And Iceberg Slim's fictional literature, or maybe it wasn't autobiographical, I don't know exactly what it was, influenced a lot of my buddies to take on this mentality. And I saw overlap there. Now, some people would say Iceberg Slim Pimp is red pill. I don't know if it is. Okay, so when I see Kevin Samuels, I'm like, man, there's some good stuff here. He says some interesting stuff. I think the holding women accountable, interesting, the way he talks about. Okay, what bugged me was that he kept professing to be a leader of singles ministries in churches, and then would turn around and say high value men should cheat. That is what pissed me off, because now you're positioning yourself as a Christian authority, and you're saying that just because you make a certain amount of money, you're entitled to do something. Not they do cheat. That's what I'm guessing. That's kind of what your position would be. This is what happens. People make money, exercise. No, he started prescribing things, and I don't know if he was trying to be polarizing or whatever. And so that is why I started commenting. And immediately after I started commenting to those reactions, because I said, well, these are the logical conclusions of this. The Nick Cannons, the Bill Gates, right? You're going to lose money. This is the logical conclusion of high value men should cheat. As a high value man, in terms of what my net worth is and what I'm, this is stupid. This is asinine to me. And then I connected with Hafiz 10 videos in, and that's when he kind of gave me some of the framework of what this is. And again, he calls it an ideology, you call it a proxology. I know that kind of triggers you. That is how I came to. I didn't come into this because I just needed to react to stuff. I came into this because people asked me, and I said, oh, there's some overlap with this whole, in the same way Andrew Tate is saying he's an Orthodox Christian. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. People are, what do you think about Andrew Tate's faith? That's why I'm reacting to it, right? Because I don't need the clicks. I could get views other ways. If I wanted to just get views, I'd just dunk on megachurch pastors all day. That would go crazy for my channel, right? I mean, you know,
true. It is
right?
true.
And so that's not the point. So that's how I got into it. And then I saw your video, and I said, well, let me check out this guy Rollo, research some of your stuff, and here we are.
Yeah,
two books later.
I think it'd be this term gets thrown around all the time. And I think you probably are sick of answering this question, but we're going to answer it anyway.
Sure.
You just used the term high value man. In your opinion, what is the definition or the praxeology, if you will, of a high value man? And you just described yourself as a high value man, so I assume you've done your research on this. So if you guys would just take a second, define what this high value man, HVM, I've heard multiple times. Explain that, please.
I think objectively speaking, it's a confluence of money, muscles, and game, right? It's maximizing your I think a high value man is the guy who maximizes his personal potential and does it in such a time and then utilizes that potential. Okay, so a lot of talking about Kevin Samuels and everything, those are prescriptions. I deal with descriptions. That's why I said a lot of the stuff that like all these guys who are out here doing this stuff. And I'm not claiming to be like the only source in the manosphere that has this stuff, but it's like a lot of that stuff is derivative from my work. Okay,
well, you'll constantly hear that he wrote the Bible of the manosphere.
Exactly. So but again, my books are written from the position of there being objective, doing my best stab at objectivity. That's number one. Number two is that it's not a prescription, but that doesn't mean that people won't take that work and turn it into prescriptions. That's what Tate does. That's what Kevin Samuels does. That's when you use the word should, that's when it ceases to be about what is and what you should do. So I don't deal in shoulds, I deal in is. So
should men spin plates and date as many women as they can non-exclusively and increase their body count?
Okay, so is it about body count? That's the other thing. Okay, so here's the thing: is if you read those 6 chapters, you'll also notice that the end of the 6th chapter is transitioning from non-exclusive dating to becoming monogamous with someone. So what if you're going to take that,
so you prescribe monogamy.
If that's going to be what I'm saying is that most guys want to get into that. Okay, I know guys like George Gammon. I know yourself. I know a lot of guys who don't want anything to do with monogamy, and they're still high value men because they've maximized money, muscles, and game. Right? They have chosen as a lifestyle not to be monogamous, and maybe they don't want to have children, but they're still doing very, very well for themselves. So is that high value, or is a high value man the guy who is like Rollo Tomassi? He's been married for 26 years. He's got a beautiful daughter. He makes a good chunk of change. He's in an ideal marriage. Is that high value, or is it high value? Is Tate high value? I would say all of the above. It just depends on what their lifestyle choices are and what it is that they choose to do. So if you're gonna idealize the lifestyle of Andrew Tate and say he's on his hustle. Like I saw the interview with you and Pat yesterday, and I'm like, wow, that's very, very interesting considering the lifestyle that Andrew Tate and Tristan also are living right now. And if they're going to profess to be Orthodox Christians, and where is their kids? Where is their thing? Is that the benchmark?
Cognitive dissonance.
Is that the goal state?
Right.
Because your goal state would probably be get into a marriage, have kids, and love God with all your heart and all your mind. Right. So that would be a high value man. For other guys, being a high value man, they still have all of those things that Tate has, but they don't have family. They're not married. They don't have a golden retriever in the yard. So that's why I'm saying the old order 20th century ideal for what is a high value man, throw that out the window. We are still clinging to old order ideals in a 21st century that says, well, here's the data sets right now. We have more access to more information right now that completely crush all of our wants to cling on to this romantic ideal of the 20th century, the 18th century, whatever century, because we think that ought to be how we do things. And in some ways, for some guys, for you and me, that works really well for us. But for Andrew Tate, people will say, you're a beta and I'm a beta and we're blue pill because we're married and we've been married for so long. Yeah. So that's why I said, like, when guys come at me and they say, oh, he can't be red pill because he's married. He can't speak knowledgeably because he's been married for 26 years. They don't know anything about my history. They don't know anything about what it is that allows me to speak authoritatively about this kind of stuff. They throw that out the window because you're married. And also on the opposite side, if you're not married, if you're a guy like Andrew Tate living the best life and you're living up to your potential, but you don't have kids and you haven't done anything like with your life because you're not married and you don't have a dog in the yard kind of thing, then you're actually the beta because you're not living up to your full potential by not having kids and everything. So it just depends on whose definition that we're working.
Well, one of the questions that we always ask and what Pat always asks, it's always, who do you want to be? Right?
Well,
who do you want to be?
Established that most men want children.
Yes. How do you go about
Let me read this stat, and then I want to get your definition of a high value man. We asked our audience. We appreciate you guys, value-tainers out there. Everyone who came from Ruslan's channel, everyone who came from Rollo's channel, Rational Male. If you're a believer of what's known as the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, it's essentially what the numbers show. 78% of you guys say that they are not waiting for marriage to have sex. And 22%, so almost 80-20, saying, no, I'll wait for sex. So I'm not shocked by that.
And 10% of that 20 are incels to begin with.
All right,
bang, bang.
Well, guys, get out of the house.
Bang, bang.
Define high value man, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I think it's probably connected to income, influence, what you can do, your network, so on and so forth.
Money muscles game that he talks about. And then
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think if we're talking about spinning plates, my issue with that is how do men sacrifice the opportunity cost of spinning plates, dating all these women non-exclusively, right? When if we're talking about, hey man, what should you be doing in your 20s? What should you be doing in your late teens? I think we would say, hey, develop some useful skills, develop some scarce skills, develop your soft skills.
Fall on your ass a lot.
Make some mistakes, do something. And I think it's an incoherent logic to say, hey, go date as many women as you can non-exclusively. At what expense when you could be developing yourself, becoming the man to the high value man? You hear this thing with the 6'6" man, 6 foot tall, 6 figures, 6 foot, right? Okay, everybody's not going to be that, but can we get some of these guys to be 2 out of 3? Right? If a guy comes to you and he says, hey man, I'm making 40 grand, I'm making 50 grand. Can we get him to 100? Right? If he's fat, can we get him to eat less calories? Can we get him shredded? And again, I know you're like, well, these are prescriptions, but I'm like, man, there are prescriptions and life works a specific way. If I want to get cut and shredded, which I'm doing right now, I have to stop eating junk food, high caloric food, and I have to eat more high nutrient, high volume food, get my protein, get my macros, do the compound lives. I don't understand why this isn't directly transferable, this philosophy transferable to ending up in a high marriage. So you're like, most men are going to sleep around and do whatever, and I'm like, and most people are fat, 70%,
more than that, 75,
30, 40% are obese. Most people are like most people. I understand, right? But what I'm saying is, if we're leading men, and we're saying, hey, Sauce, how do we get more money? And you're like, dude, this is what you got to do. You got to work on this. Hey, you've been married 26 years. How did you guys do that? Somebody asked me. We went to marriage conferences. We read a ton of books. We educated ourselves. We got premarital counseling. We had the hard conversations. We dispelled the soulmate myth. I'm with you there, 100%. The idealistic, romantic, nonsensical Disney love of marriage. We established all that stuff ahead of time. So that's the part where I look at some of this stuff. And I'm like, why are we not talking about what actually requires to get someone like a Sauce to land in a place of, man, I'm in a happy monogamous marriage where kids and family can thrive.
Which is why I wrote the fourth book.
I also think, let me just wait
this is the fourth book.
That's the fourth book.
How does that? No, this is the first book. This is the fourth book.
Okay, so I wrote the fourth book to address all the guys who would tell me exactly what you're saying. Well, Rollo, I understand what you're saying. I get all this about the red pill. I get all this stuff. I'm 100% on board with you. My religious convictions are I don't want to have sex before marriage. My religious convictions are I'm a Muslim. I'm a Jew. I interviewed. That took 3 years to write that book. That's the longest ever took to write a book because I had to be bulletproof. Everybody heard I was writing a book
about religion.
Yeah, everybody heard, Rollo's writing a book about the red pill and religion. I had like people coming out of the woodwork. Oh, are you going to talk about the Amish and are you going to talk about Mormons? Are you going to talk about, the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church of 1865? And like, I had to be on my game to understand all that stuff. So it took a long time to do that. But what I do in that book is I make the comparison and say, look, there are people would told me this. They said, well, Islam is actually the red pill religion. Christianity is the red pill religion.
Yeah, everyone wants
Mormon
the red
is the
pill.
red
Sure,
pill
sure,
religion.
sure.
Judaism is the red pill religion. And they were right about certain parts of it. They were like, hey, this is why this was a thing, because they understood the differences between men and women. They understood intersexual dynamics in a way that we have lost since the sexual revolution. So coming back to that and making it a point of like, here's the latent purpose behind these traditions. Like I make the point in here where it's like there are prohibitions against eating shellfish or eating like ham or something like that. You're not supposed to eat a cloven thing.
Because in Judaism you can't have a cheeseburger. You can't have meat
exactly.
and milk.
Because back in the day you could get trichinosis and die from that. So what are we going to tell everybody? God said don't have ham. Okay.
So,
Was it God?
Rollo, I love your heart there, but why omit the empirical data that folks who practice and take their faith seriously are less likely to get divorced? Why omit the fact that if you earn more money, that you're less likely to get divorced? Why remove that in a book about religion?
Because getting into a marriage today is on all downside risk for men, and it is all upside advantages for women.
That's selection bias, man.
Because
Because
it is not selection bias. I can point to you all kinds of stuff about divorce statistics. I can
66% are filed by women. I understand that.
Let me see if I can sum it up in this one example. Jeff Bezos, was or maybe he still is, I don't know,
Top
the richest
2-3
man
richest
in
man
the world.
of course.
When Mackenzie Bezos and him got divorced, okay, to the tune of $33 billion. It's not even the dollar amount in this case, okay? The very fact is that the top 10 women who are the richest women according to Forbes got that way in two ways. They got there through divorce or they got there through her inheritance,
right?
okay?
Yeah.
So that's number one. The other thing is it's not about that. You know why they tried to sweep that under the carpet and the narrative under the carpet with respect to divorce was it's not the $33 billion. Women came out of the woodwork saying, oh, well, she put all this money and all this equity and energy into Amazon, so she deserves that $33 billion. I argue this is that if she had quit the company or the company divested, she in no way would be able to cash out her equity in that company to the tune of $33 billion because the divorce industry is such that it's like, this is what you get for being married to the richest guy in the world at that time.
The divorce industry is awful, but isn't that a bit of an anecdotal example? I could give you another anecdotal example. I got a buddy, 7-figure entrepreneur, runs a clothing brand. This guy in my church, right? One of the few instances I've seen somebody get divorced, and it was messy. I've seen a couple of times. So one of the few instances I've seen a woman initiate the divorce in a church context, okay? The man was in Texas. He moved from California to Texas. They're in the middle of selling the company. Okay, because they're in Texas. Texas doesn't have no-fault divorce laws. They go to Texas, and you know what she got? Goose egg.
Zero. Yeah.
She got a goose egg. Okay, so here we could point to examples, and so first of all, when we're looking at celebrities and billionaires, that's a different whole stratosphere. But we could point to examples of men who get prenups, of men who move to states like Texas where they don't have no fault divorce laws. That it's not just in the favor of the woman; she's just going to get everything just because, right? So that's what I mean. Like, I understand what you're saying. I just think that is way more anecdotal than the actual data.
The very
suggests.
fact that you would need a prenup in the first place disqualifies all that.
Well, let's talk about that.
The very fact that that's even
I
a
love you
thing.
both. We're not going to do the marriage thing for another hour.
Okay.
Here's the deal, because I know you got to go soon. We can spend this all day. You're the one who's got to go. You have a super chat, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
just zoom through them because I know we want to
Give
read
them
them.
a shout out too. We got to know their
Yes.
names. We got to know who's doing this.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to go through them. First one we have is Leon VRP. He said, I started a PUA in 2016, then came to Orthodoxy through Roosh. What I came to realize is that both genders are being played by the system, and that's a spiritual essence, heavily following the red pill to understanding reality. Then we have another one from Leon as well. I respect Sauce for having an open mind, true learner. Good luck on your journey, pal.
Thank you, buddy.
Yes.
Appreciate that. What else?
Then we have Guillermo Grueva, $10, thank you. Religion's just like anything in writing, like the U.S. Constitution is the way just to live your life. You can't govern the population if the community you're governing doesn't share the same culture. Then we have Stimulate Your Mind, $10 as well. And in caps, I want to give Rollo Tomassi your followers now because you and FNF saved my life. And for that, I will forever be grateful. Thank you for everything you do with me. And then we also have another one. I don't know if I want to read that one, but I'll read it and maybe you want to answer. This one's from Mike Sinatra. How many women has Ruslan slept with? this is very telling. So if you want to sit on that. Then we have another one from Harry Zikos. Marriage is a bad deal the way it's done today. Waiting for marriage for sex is losing proposition. Test drive a car before buying. And that's by Harry Zikos. Last few we have great discussion. Rollo, do you think the red pill space should remain religious, or would it be valuable to guide people to faith in this space? So
before we answer questions,
I have an easy answer to that.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna
last few.
Even when you go, we can spend a little more time doing more super chats. Sure. Give us your super chats. We're gonna try to answer them. You've got an hour left, so I want to maximize this hour. Okay. You guys brought up a name multiple times, and I just so happen to have a story about this gentleman. You brought up the name Andrew Tate. So we're speaking of high value man. I can't log on to the internet or social media these days without this guy popping up. He's kind of gamed the algorithm, as some people may have said.
Gamed the YouTube
so
algorithm.
let's talk about this situation. Natalia, you want to pull up this article? But basically, the article states, is Andrew Tate a dangerous role model to young men or an internet idol for a disjointed generation? So is he dangerous or is he an idol? So basically the story that they talk about is that he's blown up online. We all know this. Very controversial. He's what was it? Cobra Tate? Is that his? That's his Instagram.
I've known Andrew since 2017.
So a couple different things there. Some men are taking it as the gospel. Shout out to the gospel, and others saying it's misogyny. Right. So he cites kings and sultans of always having multiple women. We've heard his opinion on that. We can play even a video on that. And in one interview, he said that the father doesn't need to be around their children, that it's the mother's job to look after their kids, and that he saw his dad once a month and when he's younger. Point is, this guy's everywhere right now. We've actually have an exchange, if you want to play that TikTok video, Natalia, and we'll let you guys weigh in on Andrew Tate and everything he talks about these days. Let's see this video.
All right, let's get it going right here.
Audio.
Let's try now.
It's the double standards. Correct. I understand that. But in a relationship,
correct,
it's a partnership.
Yes.
Right. You and me, we're together.
Since when?
You know what I'm saying. when you're trying to build a partnership and a life with someone, the end goal is you two together.
Agreed.
So why cheat?
I know. I understand where you're coming from. My point is that relationships and life is full of double standards as a whole. A man's going to pay for everything everywhere you go, right? This is his duty as a man. Do you agree?
No, I do like traditional.
Okay, so you agree. So you're traditional, right? So if you want to talk about traditional, let's talk about tradition. Every single man since the dawn of human time had more than one woman. Every single king, every single emperor, every single sultan, every single conqueror since the dawn of human time had more than one woman. All of them. Every single one. Read a history book. Read the Bible. It's all in there. The Quran, all of it. You want to talk about tradition, it's all there. The only reason your mind is different, the only reason you believe differently is because of society. Society's come along and told you something.
Yeah, but society, we can change. Like, the world evolves, things change.
The world evolves, yeah, that's right. Now men cut their dicks off and their chicks.
All right. Rollo, you know Tate very well. So
I did a full video doing the break. I did our riff on this.
Let me start with Ruslan, because you've never met or... okay, so thoughts on Andrew Tate and basically what he's saying right now, and then let Rollo respond.
Yeah, I think Andrew Tate is someone that seems to be going through a public transformation, specifically with his faith view. He's atheist, now all of a sudden he's going to church.
That?
He said so. He said, I was an atheist, now I'm going to church twice a week.
What makes that believable?
What makes that believable? You think he's trolling?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he might be trolling. I hope not.
Trolling religion?
Yeah, I hope not. You know, he
wouldn't be the first one.
Yeah, he in that interview he said that. So I think he's experiencing some cognitive dissonance there. I think he's brilliant in terms of how he's been able to leverage the internet. Can't tell how much of this is hyperbole. Can't tell how much of this is a character. I've seen videos of him breaking character and like laughing at himself. And so I think from a marketing standpoint, I think it's very sharp. I think when you're going to those types of languages, like what do we again, what is the average person going to think? I'm entitled to multiple women. Can the average person take care of multiple women? Can the average person have multiple kids with multiple women? You know the statistics on how devastating it is to a man to have multiple kids with multiple women.
One of the things I'll say, and then I will get, you know what percentage of the world is on Andrew Tate's level? And I respect what he's doing. Good looking. You're talking about money, muscles, and game. The guy's a 4-time kickboxing champion. Okay, the guy's making millions a month. Like the problem is, and I respect what he's doing. 99.9999% of you will never be on Andrew Tate's 100%. Level or on a level near Andrew Tate. And none of you guys are going to be LeBron. None of you are going to be Michael Jordan. None of you guys are going to be Brady. I'm not saying that's who he is, but the guy's a fucking G. And if he's one of the few that can multiple spin plates, as Rollo says, more power to you, brother. But most men can't do that.
What is the logical conclusion of that? He becomes Nick Cannon. He becomes the guy with 10, 11 baby mamas, and he feels bad about not being able to spend time with his kids.
How many kids do you think he has right now?
I don't know how many kids he has. I don't care. 0. Okay. Well, I mean, how many abortions have been a part of that? Right?
Good question.
I mean, statistically speaking, that you're
and
so now
we'll
again,
never know.
So now again, we're contributing to the very type of society that we don't want to see happen. We're contributing to these things. We're contributing to promiscuity. We're contributing to high body counts. We're contributing to abortion. Yet we say we're against all those things. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance there. So I think, the logical conclusion of an Andrew Tate is he's Nick Cannon, and that may sound sexy until you're Nick Cannon, and then you feel like an idiot for being Nick Cannon.
Nick could use a condom, but I think he's made a decision that he
this
wants
is
to populate the fucking planet.
Let's be honest. This is that philosophy fleshed out.
Gotcha.
Let's make no.
So be very clear
Nick
here.
Cannon,
be very clear here, Ruslan, and choose wisely. Dangerous role model or internet idol?
Both. He's
both.
clearly both.
Okay.
Yeah, he's clearly both.
So not one or the other. If you had to pick one,
I think some of his rhetoric is dangerous. Some of his stuff is common sense, right? And I think that clip right there, I think is problematic.
Put up a poll: dangerous role model
we know
or
this is gonna
internet
skew.
idol for a disjoint. Okay. Do you want to answer that question? Dangerous role model or an internet idol?
Internet idol right now, but is that positive or is that negative? Because right now I've got high school. Hell, I was just at the deli at the Centric, and I had some kid talk to me about, "Hey, Mr. Rollo, do you know Andrew Tate?" And I've got a 17-year-old guy who tells me all of his high school friends watch Tate, and they know that I've been on Fresh and Fit with Tate, and they know there's a connection between the two of us. So they're not asking me about me; they're asking me about Tate, right? So. Is he a role model? He, for better or worse, he is. He's put himself in. I keep telling, I said this on Jedediah's show as well. It's like, today, men get their education not in schools because we tell them to stay away from universities and we tell them to stay away from, a modern education, whatever. They don't see any point in going to high school. But you know where they get their education from? They get it from YouTube. They get it from online sources. They get it from, chat rooms or whatever it is. And so for better or worse, Andrew Tate is a teacher, just like I'm a teacher, just like you. We're all teachers in this room right now, because people are going to look at this and they're going to go, okay, well, here's what's being taught in this particular class. In fact, I tried in my own show, I try to emphasize that, like, here, classes in session, get your notebooks out, guys. So when I see something like this, again, I think he's a brilliant marketer. He successfully owns the algorithm for YouTube through Instagram, through Twitter, everything else. I don't think enough people know like what he's really about. Is it a character? Is it not? But that's part of his mystique. That's part of his appeal, is the fact that like people don't know that. And does he break character occasionally? Yeah, maybe he does. It just depends on like where what he's getting into now. But what he was talking about here. He kind of butchers this. As I said before,
when you're talking about the kings and the sultans.
The kings and the sultans, because
let me ask you a question, and then you weigh in on this.
Sure.
Okay, if there was you got a poll up.
Yeah. What was the other option?
The other one is a internet idol for the generation, disjointed generation. Just say internet idol. One of the things it's
kind of the same thing.
Sure, internet idol.
Yeah.
King or sultan. There was one king. There was one sultan, and then there were millions of peasants or in a feudal society. So if you view yourself as the king or the sultan, have at it. Have a harem of women. But most men, at least back in the day, were lucky if they even had a woman.
Even in the Old Testament, there's polygamy in the Old Testament. So here's what he's butchering. And Andrew, I love you, but let me clarify terms here, because again, taking the red pill work and then applying it like Andrew does, or Kevin, or whoever else. This is a prime example of this. When I talk about this, I actually pulled this from I wrote about it in the fourth book, but I pulled it from a book called Alpha God, which is another thing I think you should probably read at some point. It's by Dr. Hector Garcia, fascinating book. And so in there, Dr. Hector Garcia points out that there are three things that have defined powerful men throughout the course of history. That is territory, that is resources, and that is access to virginic, beautiful women that they have exclusive access to. So you can go around the world in any era, and that is the case. So there's the tribal chieftain that's in the Amazon rainforest, and he's got his hoes in a compound, or he's got them fenced off somewhere, and they're guarded by eunuchs. They got to cut off their dicks so that they know that that's the the chieftain's, that's his brood, that's his harem, to make sure that his genetics go on into perpetuity.
And this is in civilizations
same
all
thing
across
with kings
the world.
and queens. Same thing with dynastic emperors of China and the Forbidden City, guarded by eunuchs. They've got the harem of women that are there. Okay, the things that we're using extreme examples, and he's using extreme examples for effect. But the fact of the matter is that powerful men throughout history, Father Abraham, right? He's got he had Sarah, and he had Ruth, wasn't Ruth, was it? I forget the two wives he had. Plus he had maid servants. God knows
How do you not
many.
know that, brother?
I think Rachel is the other one.
Rachel
was the other one. So anyway,
I know. Come on, don't play me like that.
I don't know if it was,
but
I know if it was Rachel though.
So we can talk about. I'm not a theologian or a biblical scholar by any means, but I will say this is that there are sections of the Bible where marriage is defined in a whole lot of different ways. We only think of marriage between one man and one woman in the New Testament. Prior to that, there's all kinds of different definitions for marriage. But the point I'm making is that you can find polygamy, examples of polygamy, exactly what he's talking about, and the powerful man, the powerful chieftain in the Old Testament. You can find it in the Quran. You can find it all throughout history. So that's what he's kind of butchering a little bit right there, thinking, well, I'm a powerful man, so therefore I should be able to have a harem. I always mispronounce that, right? But that's the point he's trying to make for effect. But he's not wrong, because by order of degree, we still practice soft polygamy right now. If you've been married once before, and if those were the only people, you would still have two wives at some point, assuming you get married again. But I presume that you've already had sex with other women as well. So there's this idea that men by order of degree will form soft harems. If that's marrying multiple women, then that's another thing. But it's by your powerfulness and sort of that dominance hierarchy amongst men. So is that the right way? Is that the wrong way? What I'm saying is, I don't say right and wrong, but I will say this, is that men's innate, native, natural mating strategy is unlimited access to unlimited women. And for women, it is hypergamy. It is alpha fucks and beta bucks. They're looking for quality. Men are looking for the quantity side of things. And if you don't believe me, I'll just present one fact to you. Why do you think so many men are addicted to porn? Why do you think that pornography is free, 4K, streaming, ubiquitous? I can go look at porn right now if you want to.
But you condemn porn, though. You don't think porn is good.
I think porn is sedation.
Okay.
So
sedation for what?
Sedation to keep you from becoming to keep men from realizing their full potential. And by the way, it's one of many. So just saying.
Just like food can be sedation, just like
alcohol,
things,
prescription drugs, you name it.
Here's my question about Tate.
Weed.
I'm not saying whether you like him or don't like him or agree or disagree. I'm asking percentage-wise, what percentage of men, even men in America, can operate the way that he's operating?
Oh, very small percentage.
What number?
0.1%.
Okay.
I think I would even go a fraction of 1%, but I agree.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is that Tate, God bless you, bro. Fucking play on, player. Do your thing. You're hilarious to watch, but the problem that I have is that you watching this at home, the young guy who's watching him being like, I'm going to be like Tate. No, you're not.
Yeah, it's iceberg.
It's not happening.
It's Iceberg Slim all over again. It's literally the pimp from the 1940s being popularized in culture all over.
Do you
again.
respect the hustle?
Do I respect the entrepreneurial side of things? Yeah, I respect it, but I think I don't think it's as hard to do that versus other things. We talked about
Ruslan.
this. So
there's a famous quote.
What?
Don't hate the player, hate the game, buddy.
That's fair.
You're hating the game right now.
Listen. But what I'm going to say is what I said last time: lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Those are always going to be the easier things to sell. It's much more difficult, Rollo, to do what you do in trying to write books and sell books than it is to sell a lifestyle or to sell cam girls or to do OnlyFans. So I think we have to be fair in that. Yes. Is he brilliant in terms of his mind and the way he's thinking, chess master, all that? Sure. Is what he's selling that tough of a commodity to sell? No, it's not. A lot of people sell it. What was the young lady that was here? I was here last time.
Allie.
She was, $100,000 a month, $800,000, whatever the number was. Right.
Yeah, Allie Ray.
And so it's like, do I respect the hustle?
Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh.
Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh.
Yeah, respect.
I'll add something else to that. I would say that fear is the most monetizable of the human emotions.
Fear of missing out, FOMO.
Fear of everything. Yeah, you name it. Feed them fear and sell them security.
You talked about Kevin Samuels. Do you think that he's filled the void that Kevin
Absolutely.
Samuels
I think
has left?
he stepped right into that vacuum.
And I think the tough part is, is this entertainment or is this science? right? I think that's
the very
part
fact that you're asking that question is exactly why he's popular.
and I guess that's to me that's the dangerous part, because we can't tell if these guys playing a character, if he's being a WWE character, that's you, Shawn Michaels, but that's not really you. You're kind of amplifying it, or if this is who he really is. I think that's the tough part, and I think young men get very confused. Just like we saw gangster rap music in the early '90s, a lot of young men didn't know that Dr. Dre wasn't really out there in the streets gangbanging, right? I think people can't tell the difference.
I love the fact that you just brought up young men, because that transitions to our next point, because young men can be confused. There was I grew up in the '90s, late '90s, where if you were listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop and Pac and Biggie, you might have
Marilyn
thought you
Manson.
you were more that, but you might have thought that you were kind of a gangster, but maybe you weren't that kind of hard in the gangster. So let's talk about men these days. Let's talk about young men specifically. From your gentleman's perspective, where are men really struggling? What do you think is the biggest problem out there for young men in America today?
Purpose.
Not having a lack of purpose?
Men have been systematically socially engineered to be denied purpose. Men, we're innate problem solvers. And when I always refer back to, and it wasn't actually Jordan Peterson who coined this phrase, I just found that out, but it's like the Lost Boys generation, or the dropout generation is what it was before that even. And it's the guys, it's a generation of guys who are anywhere between, like, say 18 and 29, somewhere around there, and they are absolutely rudderless in life. That's why these shows are so popular. That's why Andrew is so popular. That's why I'm popular. That's why you're popular, because these guys are looking for the dad they never had. That's why Jordan Peterson was such a sensation, at least for about 18 months there, from 2018 to wherever he is now. The point being is that there are sheep looking for a shepherd right now, because they either were denied a positive masculine role in their life, or else they've been condemned. I ask this question all the time: where do men go to become educated today? Because we constantly tell them, don't go to college, you're going to waste your time, you don't want to take out those loans, you don't want to be at a disadvantage, you don't need college, you don't need education, you don't need to go to university, you'll end up a communist, or you'll end up with blue hair and your lady, you'll end up underarm hair, you look like Lena Dunham coming out of college. Right. So we discourage that education, and probably rightly so, because again, it's another institution that used to be something that was had some value to it. I have 2 degrees. I felt like I got some education out of that. I was able to write these books as a result of being well educated on a lot of variety of things. And if I didn't know something, I can go and find out. Right. But what we're telling guys right now is, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't go to school, don't do that. And then people are like, okay, well, what do I do? And so that's why you get a Jordan Peterson who's so seductive to say, hey, well, come to my shows and here's what I'm going to tell you, some very profound things, but they leave the auditorium and they still are purposeless, and they still don't know what they're going to do. That's why you have incels. That's why you have that's why we have the Lost Boys generation right now, is because men are natural problem solvers, but we have no problems to solve. All the frontiers have been explored right now, and that's the number one question I get, and I'm sure everybody else. You can monetize this.
I know you
because
don't
they don't know what to do.
I know you don't want to give the prescription. You've been very vocal about that, but I'm gonna ask you, where should men find purpose these days?
Well, I'll tell you where they are finding it. They're finding it online right now, and
that's where they're finding it. But what should they do about it?
It depends on the individual. I would have to know what their particular talents are. Where are they in the world? That's another reason why I don't presume to give prescriptions. I am a 54-year-old white male living in the United States right now. I would not presume to tell the 18-year-old kid in Mumbai, here's the secret to success, kid in Mumbai. I'm not going to do that, and I would question anybody who has a template that says they can do that.
I actually respect that you're saying I don't have all the answers. I respect that.
I have the tools for you to go figure it out on your own to build a life, but I'm not going to tell you how to go and construct that.
Respect.
In fact, I want to see your work. I want to see what you build with these tools.
I think, and that's where we go back to that initial question: who do you want to be? Whether you're the 54-year-old white guy in America or the 18-year-old kid in Mumbai, who do you want to be? If you can answer that question, you can somehow find your purpose. Can I ask you the exact same question? Where do you see as the biggest problem with young men in America today, or even in the world?
Yeah, I think identity. I think there's a demonization to be masculine.
Absolutely.
I think there's an isolation happening because of the internet, and in a weird way it connects people, but it isolates them even more.
It's an extroversion that it's an introversion that everyone thinks is an extrovert.
Yeah, and I think that
you can see everything in the world, but you can just be in your home in your basement.
You have so many access to so many people and so many different opinions and so much different information, and so it could be tough to know you're up from your down. And I think if I'm a man today, and I was around, my high school, the internet was starting to take off, and then it was like MySpace, early college years. And so these things were starting to populate, but I think there's different challenges. And so I think you're so inundated with so much information that you don't really know what to do.
Sensory overload.
Yeah, sensory overload. You don't really know what to do. And then when you don't know what to do, you just end up doing nothing. You just end up playing video games.
Right. That's what they say. If you're for our salespeople out there, you can have option A or option B or option C or this. You can choose this. It's like give people 2 options or 3 options. They'll make a decision.
By the way,
give people 10 options.
That's what let's have a complaint, but my main complaint when we start talking about what is a high value man, right? Like guys want to get from point A to point B, right? Well, when you see an Andrew Tate and he's living the lifestyle he is, and not just him, there could be just like lower limit bush league guys who are kind of like him. Guys, like young men look up to that and they see what he's living, the lifestyle he's living. But for most of those guys, they can't relate with being draped over a Lamborghini. They can't relate with being on a super yacht in the Sea of Oman.
Let them dream, Rollo. Let them dream.
But their dreams
are over.
Well, that's why I keep telling. That's been my purpose or my point is to when I'm talking about it has to be for the everyman. It has to be for the same guy who is in Miami as the same guy who's on a tractor in Oklahoma in the Midwest somewhere. It has to be relatable to all men. That's why I get really pissed off when we talk about the black manosphere, the Latin manosphere, the Asian manosphere, the white manosphere. No, we're all men, and we all have the same. We're all in the same boat right here. And if we're not, we will be soon. So that's why I keep saying we need to make it relatable for everyone.
Finish your thought. But he said purpose. You said
identity and purpose.
Identity. Okay.
And so if I go back to where I was at high school, my father wasn't in my life. My mother was divorced. Abandoned more or less. My father was the one that was hypergamous in terms of marrying someone that was younger than him or more attractive than my mom. And we're all good now, but I didn't have a ton of direction. I didn't have a ton of guidance. I didn't have a ton of purpose. And so if I'm reverse engineering, I'm giving people the prescription for what worked for me. As someone that is in the West, of able-bodied and sound mind, I don't have any physical ailments, I don't have any mental disabilities, and I've been able to come from the bottom objective poverty to doing fairly well for myself. And so the prescriptions, I think Rollo is saying he wants to go as wide as possible. I'm saying, hey, if you're in these sorts of situations, here are the things I would be focusing on late teens to early 20s. I wouldn't be spinning plates. I wouldn't be doing all this, all trying to chase tail and all these different things at the club. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. I would be working on, hey, what scarce skills do you have? How is your network? Who do you know? Do they know you? Do you add value to them? What are your soft skills? And do you want to build a life with somebody? Because you're way more likely to be stable emotionally in a marriage when done right. And I think there's a lot of being done wrong, but I think when done right, it could be the biggest catapult. And so for me and my wife, I was 23, she was 21. You were a little older when you got married. You were in your
28.
30s. 28, yeah. So I was 23, she was 21. I had 3 sexual partners. She had none. Okay. So, woohoo for me, married a virgin. And we were able to start bottom of the barrel and build an amazing lives for ourselves, because of some of these basic concepts like delaying gratification, like living on less than what you make, like not spending any time playing video games. I had to do a hard cutoff with video games, right? Like, because it was common, like Xbox was starting to take off. Everybody's playing online. No video games for me,
sedation.
man. Of course. Yeah, sedation. And so there were specific things that I needed to do that tip the scales in my favor and continue to tip the scales in my favor. And I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody. That's fair. But it can work for most men who are of able-bodied, sound mind in the West, make these sorts of decisions. Sauce, you could talk about money all day, man.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Thank you for teeing it up right there. I'd say this all the time, whether it's video games, whether it's Netflix, whether it's fantasy football, you have 2 choices with your time, your most precious commodity, other than your health. Health is number 1. Is that you can either invest your time or you can spend your time. Take your pick. These days, all I do is invest my time. I'm not saying that sometimes I won't spend a little time doing whatever, but for the most part, I'm looking at time as a commodity. And
it's your most precious commodity.
Exactly, other than health.
And the older you get, the more precious it becomes.
Like you talked about the other day. Listen, I'm in my mid-50s now. I'm trying to, time is what I'm working on right now. But if you can invest your time wisely, there's only success at the other side of that rainbow. You brought about, you talked about the feminization of men for a second. Was that you or you?
I think we both
probably
talked
about
about the
that.
feminization
What's that?
of men.
You brought it up.
I brought that up. You're nodding because, Natalia, do you have a lot of experience with feminine men?
I see a lot of them today. if that's your question.
Like metro type men?
Yeah, you see a little bit more men more in tune with their emotions, a little bit more open to, I guess, visually even seeing men being more feminine.
Gotcha.
Today.
So if 10 men approach you, you're very approachable, by the way.
Thank you.
Pretty, attractive, and attractive attitude, which is the number one thing about
Nice.
Natalia. Shout out. If 10 men approach you, how many would you say that's a man's man? How many would you say he's like complete beta? And then how many would you say he's kind of a metro? He's like a fluid, more of a guy.
I don't want anyone to come for me, but I would say maybe like 7 to 6 men out of the 10 would be really manly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say.
So that's counterintuitive of what we're learning about here. You're saying that 70% are more manly.
Those are the ones approaching you.
Those are the ones
Oh,
approaching
maybe those are the ones that are approaching.
Approaching me. Now-
So you're saying the more feminine men are probably too scared to approach a pretty girl.
Yes, they're a little bit more scared, and yeah, they're just a little like, I feel like today men with like big egos are the ones who are like, you know, ready to approach women. Usually, like, I would say like nice guys, good guys, they're more on that feminine side because they don't want to be like overstep their boundaries in a way. But I think we talked about this, or I watched something the other day. Women like to have like a man approach them. Women like a manly man. Like women don't like, oh, like he's shy, he doesn't want to come talk to me. Like girls don't like that. They want a man. So I feel like, you know, men have taken a step back from doing that. So the femininity has gone up. But yeah, that's just my take.
Well, thank you for sharing, Natalia. So I know you talk about this, the feminization of men, quite a bit. I'd like to open this up for discussion, but let me just read this article. The feminization of men cheats women out of our natural desire to admire strong men. We've talked about this before. Surveys have shown how women today are drowning in a sea of unhappiness despite the progress they've achieved in attaining equality with men, right? Could that be perhaps the reason behind this wave of unhappiness in so many women's lives that arose from the diminishing power of masculine strength? What are your thoughts?
Well, clearly, we've been talking about this for ages. I think that what the most interesting part of this is whenever you see articles like this, it's this plea for men to become more masculine to solve women's problems. It's not about men like benefiting themselves. Like here, build yourself up and be a better dude. Build yourself up, be a better dude because women need you to be a better dude. That's what it's not
Great
about. They could care less about the state of the condition of the guy. They just care about the
guys. Be more manly. We need you.
Women most affected, right?
Wow.
That's the whole thing. Self-improve.
Stop being so selfish, Natalia.
Sorry.
Stop being so damn
I don't know,
selfish.
you see
Man
a
can just
man
be a
and
man
you
for
want,
himself.
No,
Well,
you see a man, you're like, I want to get that
I got into this. I got
fullness
into
out
this
of it.
with Jedediah. Is like we're at a point right now where it's like women are wondering like where the real men at? How come they're not approaching me?
They're
Most
in
women
church with Ruslan.
Hello, pull up.
Mostly what they tell me is like they would love for like today the number one way that men and women meet is online. They meet on Tinder, they meet on
hate
Hinge,
that.
they meet on Bumble.
I
That's
hate
simply
that.
they don't meet in church, they don't meet friends, they don't meet at school, they don't meet at work, they meet online.
And those are the
And
ones
it
who come out
spikes
more
like
feminine,
crazy.
believe it or not. They're the ones who are a little bit more like, you know, a little more shy because they won't approach you in person, but over the phone they have all this bold stuff to say.
That was you probably have the stats on this. That was trending in that direction during COVID. Obviously, that accelerated like crazy.
It's through the roof. And again, what I keep saying is like the old order way of thinking about dating. We don't date in happy days anymore. We don't date in like, you know, the sock hop and we're going to have a malt after the dance or something.
Jukebox days.
Those we're going to go stare. We're going to go steady. Yeah, we love the idea. It's romanticized, but that's not how we meet today. And we're 21 years into the 21st century. Wow. But the other thing I was going to say is I hate this kind of shit right here because it is telling men to man up after generations of telling men to man down. So when we say, well, where are the real men at? How come they're not around? And that you want to know why we're having the conversation about should a man cheat or should a man not cheat or a high value man should have a harem, a soft harem, however they want to do it. It's not because men are going, yeah, man, this is a great idea. I think I'm going to go do this. It's because women can't get the strong alpha guy that they all feel that they're entitled to right now. So they would rather share a high value alpha guy than be saddled with a faithful beta right now because they don't want that boringness. They can get the benefit benefits of provisioning, protection, and parental investment that the beta used to be able to provide for women, but they do it themselves.
They make their
So
own
how do
money.
you fix it? How do you fix that?
So they
You've
don't-
been
they don't-
influenced
I make my own
years
money.
and
I
years.
do my own. What's the song?
They don't need men, but they want men. Well, okay, what kind of men do they want? Strong, masculine guy who is traditionally, conventionally, evolutionarily is a strong, dominant alpha male.
But my question is, so what things have encouraged men to become that more feminine side, like bring out that more feminine side?
Sedation, first and foremost.
Like what?
Well, pornography is that's the easiest one.
You think watching porn makes a man more feminine?
Absolutely, because it sedates them. They have no reason. There's no incentive to do anything. You want to know why guys are listless and rudderless? Primarily, it's because we have industrialized our forms of sedation. Whether that's porn, whether that's video games, whether that's legalizing marijuana, whatever keeps you in bed and not getting out of bed to actually go do something. Like I can be. Again, we can be the most influential teachers on the internet, and we can say, get out there and go do this and smash in the gates of hell, right? You leave the church or you leave the YouTube or you leave whatever, and you know what? You're right back where you were. It's an extroversion that is actually an introversion. And once you get to that point, if you're still locked into pornography, and I think it's like 68% of Christian men admit to being addicted to pornography.
What?
That is sedation.
It's not very Christ-like.
And that's you want to know if I have a beef against like sedation or against pornography. That's the thing is that if it becomes so consuming that you can't get out of bed in the morning and all you're going to do is just do barely the bare minimum to do what you have to do to survive. That's not living, and that's not prospering, and that's not becoming any better than you are. And then there's also we can talk about the opioid epidemic too, which no one wants to talk. We'll probably talk about it around election time, but that's a huge sedation right now. We legalized marijuana. That's a huge sedation. And people are going to come at me and go, I smoke weed and I'm still no, you're not. Not as much as you would be if you didn't smoke
That's
weed.
true. But
alcoholism, name the sedate food.
So what would your advice be, or what
Stop
would you,
sedating yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
Well-
how would you reverse that?
Well,
what would you think?
let me
to
just
reverse
before you answer this, let me just what you're saying makes complete sense because
Yeah.
a man used to have to get out of the house and hunt.
Yes.
I'm talking just historically, and then even and before the internet age. Now, pop a pill, smoke some pot, order some DoorDash, jerk off on your phone. Why do I even need to get out of bed anymore? And that's essentially what you're saying. You're sedated.
Well, the other thing is like when we talk about the 80-20 rule, and let me clarify this: 100% of women want to get with the top 20% of guys. The 80% that they don't want to get, that they say are unattractive, those are the guys we're talking about right now. Those guys who are like, oh, I don't have a chance. I'm nihilistic, hopeless, black pill doomer. Woe is me. That 80 percentile right there is always been there, and it's always going to be there. So
is it the feminization of men, or is it like just the demasculization of men?
I think the 20th century ease with which we can indulge in our pleasures, whether that's food, whether that's booze, whatever your sedation, your of choice happens to be, whatever that is what is preventing, I would say, most people from actually benefiting and becoming maximizing their potential.
And is it only going to get worse in the metaverse?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Don't plug yourself in.
Yeah. I want to turn it over to you, Ruslan, but you were an athlete.
Yep.
You get out of the house.
Yep.
You work on yourself. You go to church. You're not sitting home and playing video games. You've been very vocal about that.
Yep.
What's your prescription?
I mean, that was a lot of prescriptions there, man. I mean, that's as close as I've heard you
when
come
people
to.
ask me, when people say, what do you think about like what? Because I get this all the time. People say, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not asking me for that. My 18-year-old self would tell me to go fuck off. Okay,
Get out of here, kid, you fucking geek.
I know this. Okay, what they're asking me is, what would you tell to the younger generation? So what do I see? My analysis is this: is that there more guys. We just talked about the Lost Boys generation. More men in this generation, particularly the last half of the millennials and maybe all of Generation Z, are the first generations that have been raised on social media. The first generations that have had you were talking about PlayStation was a big deal in the 90s. Well, imagine you were born in year 2000. You're 22 years old right now, and you've never known a world without a cell phone, without the internet, without social media, without being able to do this. By the way, this is the only time in history we could actually do this. But we take it for granted. I mean, I come from a generation that's prior to all this, so I kind of can sort of get the balance of this. But you have to remember that the generations that have been acculturated and socialized in that environment, they have no frame of reference of anything that was before that. So it seems natural to them, like, I'm going to smoke weed, and I'm going to be sedated, and I'm going to do that. Me looking at this from sort of this God's eye third person view, I go, okay, stop sedating yourself, or it doesn't matter what I say or what tools I give you. Get out. That's pragmatic advice. If it's advice, here's what you need to do. Get out of bed. Stop sedating yourself. Get up and go.
Yeah, I think everything he said, I think could be defined in a simple phrase. And I tell my son this all the time: if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy.
Wow.
If you start making those sacrifices, I'm sure we're all familiar with newbie gains. Right?
No.
If you're in your late teens, early 20s, you've never strength trained before, and you hit perfect macros and perfect strength training for 6 months, you could put on 20 pounds of muscle
you get yoked.
really quick. They're called newbie gains. So the earlier you start, the faster you could put it on, and the more likely you are to sustain it. This is, you see the guy in his 20s that eats like crap mid-20s. It's because he got yoked when he was 18, 19, testosterone levels higher. All of these different things impact you. And I think many things in life work that way. Do what is hard, and life will be easier. When your brain is still early, you could acquire skills faster. You can learn languages more when you're a child. And so we talk about this with my 7-year-old. My nephew is just over. I have a 17-year-old nephew who came over, teaching him video editing. We're teaching him strength training. We're going to the gym sometimes 2 a day.
He needs mentors.
He needs mentors. He needs men to pour into him. And so that a majority of my time in church has been doing that. We used to run a Monday night men's group. Men would show up, and we'd be like, dude, what's your goals? I want to lose weight. Get your butt on a scale. How's your eating been? We'd make men weigh in. Accountability. And so I think these are the sorts of things where I think are so necessary and there's so much information. There's so much access to information that if you could just point to people and just say, hey man, this would be a time to start working on your physique. This would be a time to start working on your scarce skills. And this would be a time to start working on your relationships, your network, your soft skills. If you do those 3 things earlier on in life, and I meet guys through my YouTube comment section that I become friends with, that we do business with.
You're very good about
that,
by the way.
We met through Instagram DMs, right?
Yes.
Like the world is so much smaller that you can meet people everywhere. And so I think if I had to break it down, those would be the 3 things, man.
I should also point out that like there are bright and shining hopes that I have in this generation. Like when I'm working with like Kevin Savo and the Savo brothers, they're Generation Z. But they're on their game. They're not sedating themselves. They're out there actually hustling their ass off. So there are brief little spots where I see someone from that generation. I go, that kind of gives me.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I've been very impressed with the few early 20 somethings that either work here.
The guys I know are rock stars. Everyone I know in their early 20s is a rock star.
There's a lot of it that's like it's easy to shit on the younger generation, but.
The bar has been set so low, it's almost impossible not to at least raise yourself above the bar.
I have a quick question. Do you think the rise of people being more openly gay and that being more supportive, do you think that also is a cause of feminization of men? Do you think that's a
can
big
of worms?
I do. I do. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Gotcha.
And especially, it's not enough to be gay. That doesn't make you special anymore. You have to be trans. You have to be something else. You've got to be something more. Everybody wants to feel special.
You can't just be LGBT. You got to have some Q's and H's.
You want to know? You want
pluses and minuses.
You want to know why there's 71 different genders? That's 71 different flavors of special that I can be.
It's like Baskin Robbins times 2. Let's talk to the ladies right now for a second. By the way, it's we got about 20 minutes.
I got one more question, quote for Rollo.
Okay. Let's talk to the women out there because we just gave you some game, gave you some advice for the young men out there. Get off your ass, have some purpose.
Stop watching
figure
porn.
out your identity. Stop, watching porn online. Let's talk to the women out there, okay? From your perspectives, let's go with you first. What is the biggest challenge that women are facing these days? What's the biggest problem that you're seeing in the not manosphere, women's sphere? If that's a term. Is that even a thing?
You want to start with?
Go.
I think women have immense pressure from every side pulling on them. I think they have the expectation to be highly educated, to be highly independent from men, to Rollo's point, to be hot, to be friendly, to prioritize their family. All of these different things, and I think it's a lot of different things that are pulling on women. They did a study. They found out that 56% of working women who have kids 18 and under would have preferred to stay home had been given the option. Right?
Say those numbers again.
56% of working women with kids 18
so more
and
than
under
half of women
would have preferred to stay home if given the option. So I think there's something to women that like, man, and Jordan Peterson made the point of the biggest fall off in terms of women leaving is in executive law. When you start getting to higher levels of law, women check out because if I'm married to a lawyer, which most lawyers are married to other lawyers, $200K a year versus $300, $500K, the lifestyle change isn't that much different.
They don't go to college to find a husband anymore. They get a law degree to find a husband now.
So they exit out of that field. So I think there's so many different pressures on women to figure these things out. And I think some education is good. I think it's good to be educated. I think it's good to have some skills. But I think if your entire mentality is like, I'm going to be this bad, independent chick that's going to run everything, most men don't want that from most women. Most men want a wife that's flexible. Most men want a wife that will let them lead. Most men want a wife that's fit, healthy, and that is okay with. And again, there's outliers. There's outliers situations. There's entrepreneurial women that are incredible and they're crushing it. And there's outliers, but most men also probably would want the woman to raise the kids and stay home with the kids. And we've done that. My wife came home 2014, right when we had our first kid. And she's been home ever since. She works from home. She does some stuff. She does all of our accounting. But I think that's still a very healthy model. And they've done the studies. I told you this, the family with 2 incomes nets less than the family with 1 breadwinner, which again goes back to financial independence. If as a man you can provide, I think you position yourself to be in a much more happy marriage, stable marriage, joyful marriage. And so I think there's a lot of pressure, man. And I would just say, who are you pulling from and who do you want to be? Same point.
Well, Rollo, you talk about this all the time, that men don't really care what women make because they don't share their money with men.
No, well, the number one precipitator of divorce is when a couple is making the same amount of money and the woman gets like a raise in pay. She gets a promotion at work, or she is boosted into a status, and also makes more money than the guy does.
That's
that
in a marriage, you're
the
saying.
number one precipitator of divorce.
Are single or working women doomed for a lifetime of sadness because they're chasing the money?
Yes,
Really?
you are. Yes, you are doomed.
Period.
You're doomed to a lifetime. Statistically speaking, Morgan, not me.
Would you say career working women or just working women?
What's the difference? Right?
Well, career working women is that
it's a difference between a careerist and a job.
Exactly. Career is like, this is my priority. A man will come later. Kids will come later. A girl working, she's like, I got to pay my bills.
Yeah, there's a difference between a job and a career for women.
Exactly.
And the other, I should also add this, is that like we have sold, and I agree with you here, it's like we have sold women a bill of goods really since the sexual revolution, that you can have it all, baby, right? You don't need a man. You might want a man, but you don't even need a man to reproduce. Go down to the sperm bank, go down to the fertility clinic. You can have you don't even have to do that now. You can go on Facebook and find a sperm donor if you want to. Literally can do that. But so we have essentially, you want to talk about like making things convenient for women in that sense. We have said we made men superfluous right now, whether you're a father or whatever, until it's like, Father's Day and it's like, do better, dad, kind of thing. But we've made guys superfluous in the sense that like women don't see any point of getting with a guy who is either going to be an abuser, he's going to be a doofus like Homer Simpson, he's going to be incompetent. Yeah, we teach women that men are untrustworthy, that you can't depend on them for security. The number one thing, and this happened with you and
but they
Allie.
are if they cheat.
You just did what I was just about to say.
Hold that thought.
Just what I was about to say.
Quick poll, put this up there for our gentlemen out there.
Go ahead.
Would you rather have more of a housewife, traditional woman, or do you want a woman who's out there making money? If you could put that poll out there, I'd love to see the results.
Natalia, you
said housewife or what?
Housewife or working woman.
Okay.
Natalia, you just made my case for me. Okay, when Allie was on here and she did that one viral video,
Allie Drummond.
Allie Drummond.
Yeah.
She was talking about.
Shout out to Allie.
Yeah, when she was talking about like, I'm a traditional wife, I submit to my husband, blah blah blah. The number one complaint, it went viral, 4 million. God knows how high it was. The number one complaint from women was, I would never want to do that because what if he left? What if he started banging his secretary? What if he got a trophy wife? What if? And it was all based on fear. As I said, fear is the most monetizable emotion of humans.
Well, to be fair though, men are statistically more likely to cheat than women.
Yes, true. But the thing is we've terrorized generations of women with the idea that if you don't have a career, if you don't have this will happen to you. And what happens is that fear is based on what's called the apex fallacy. fallacy.
What's,
so they
what's
see
the
some
alternative though? Like you're against no fault divorce laws, and you're against alimony. You're against a man marrying a woman.
Alimony, by the way, is a law that is a holdover. It's a vestige from the 1930s, from the Depression era.
Sure.
Just so we know.
I don't know how that's relevant, but what I'm saying is, if we have men who are leaving women. My dad left my mom. We were on welfare. I know we talk about the welfare state like it's this sexy thing. It was $650 a month.
Yeah, real sexy.
$650 a month. Our rent was $450 a month. I remember that as a child.
As a kid, you're saying.
As a kid.
Yeah.
We'd go without food, and my dad didn't pay a whole lot of child support. I think it was like $90 a month when he did pay. And again, props to my dad. I love my dad now. We're good. And I got to see some of his perspective on the other end. But what about like when men are hypergamous? What about when men abandon women? Because I've seen that.
That is the only narrative you hear. That is absolutely the only narrative you hear is the deadbeat dad. Like, for instance, like we in fact, especially every Father's Day, it's not Father's Day anymore. It's Special Persons Day right now.
Which that's nonsense.
But you can get this in every church sermon. If you look at the difference between Mother's Day sermons and Father's Day sermons, Mother's Day is you're doing great, girl. We love you so much. You're doing the job of 10 men, and you don't need no man. You're just as good a father as you are as a mother. When Father's Day rolls around, the sermon is do better.
Rollo,
do better, because you're not living up to your expectations, and it's constantly like that.
But isn't that a more masculine way to like get men to react?
That's why they're not in the church right now.
What would you tell a Natalia, or you said you have a 24-year-old daughter, the young women out there that are listening, what would your advice be for them? As far as like working, you made the distinction between having a job.
Your daughter's a PhD student.
No, she's got a master's.
She's got a master's.
But I mean, and she's getting married. Right?
The difference between a career and a job, and advice for women.
Well, so my point is this: is like I don't have a problem. Like people say, we talked about this on Jedediah again. We were talking about the repeal the 19th, and should we take away women's right to vote? I don't believe that we should. I think that women.
That's a thing now.
Well, it's been that way for a long. Dude,
repeal the women's.
Welcome to the MGTOW.
Who's advocating for that?
Doom pill, black pill, MGTOWs are advocating. So here's my point. I always think, okay, number one, that's untenable. Like that's never going to happen, period, because women are the largest voting bloc in the United States. Now, but beyond that point is, should women have the right to vote, right? Should they be the ones that are making decisions politically? You can talk about, what is a vote and what is not a vote as far as like, understanding electoral process. But the thing is this, is that I'm not against women participating in the government. I'm not interested. I don't care like what, as far as access to opportunity. I hope my daughter has equal access to opportunity that she wants. However, and I have told her this, is that you are also responsible for the results of your decisions. Because right now, up to this point, really since the sexual revolution, women have wanted to live with the benefits of old order privileges of being a woman, with new order privileges of also having been being a woman. So you have all of these. You have this decision to go and marry who you want to, but guess what? That might have been the wrong choice for you, or abortion for that matter as well. It's like you had sex with this guy, and now you have the baby, and it's not his decision to abort the baby. It's your decision. It's not about what happened before that. It's about you get to decide whether that child lives or dies. That right there is a result of this idea that we can forgive women of their absolve them of the bad decisions, so that they have a fail-safe in many different ways. Abortion happens to be a fail-safe, but it's also it's not that I don't think women should have choice. They need to own the results and the consequences of those choices. And right now, we don't do that. There's a separate standard of justice for women that is apart from men.
Guys, we've got about 10 minutes left with you. Yep. I know you got to go. And then you want to stick around and answer some super chats? Let's do that. Okay, because I know the super chats are on fire.
We have a super chat for Ruslan.
Okay, so let's get Ruslan's final thoughts. Well, not final thoughts,
but I know you got a point to make. I can do a quick super chat if you guys remember.
Go ahead.
Actually, you can go ahead. I'm going to find it.
Okay, cool. So, you're not going to get any pushback from me about how insane abortion is, okay? I think we're
it's funny. It's like whenever I'm like this, people always ask me like, "Are you pro-abortion or anti-abortion?" I go, "I will just tell you the realities, like what the latent purpose of it is."
So this is a part of your book where I was very, I was confused by, and I'm not sure if this is you speaking in generalities or what's happening here. This talks about reproductive schedules, short-term, long-term reproductive schedule. This ties into alpha seed, beta need. This paradox that necessitates that women and by default men must subscribe to short-term, long-term schedules. This convention of the psychosocial schema that accompanies is precisely why women will marry the nice guy, stable, loyal, preferably doctor, and will F the pool boy or the cute surfer she met on spring break. In our genetic males, male good genes implied a good provider, right? And then you go on to say, for this dynamic and practicality of enjoying the best of both worlds, women find it necessary to cheat. And then you double down on it again. So what are you saying here? Are you saying that women find it necessary to cheat? I understand the short-term, long-term mating strategies, but I'm, if you can give me like a quick answer, are you saying women are going to cheat because this dual mating strategy?
Okay, so don't take that as an imperative. Okay, are they going to? So what you're getting at is hypergamy a straitjacket? Okay,
You've said hypergamy is not a straitjacket.
Guys come at me all the time and they say, why would I want to get into a relationship with a woman and put all this energy and all this equity and everything into a relationship if she's just going to go cheat with the guy who's the bigger and better with Andrew Tate, right?
It creates paranoia, right?
Yeah, there's Tate again, begging your chick.
And it does. And I have said this over again. This is sort of a black pill versus red pill thing because the black pill tends to deal in extremes, okay, and binaries, okay. So why would I want to do anything? I'm going to get raked over the coals and divorced if I go and I get married. She's just going to cheat on me. Why would I put all this time and energy into her when I can just jerk off the porn and I'm okay? So what that comes back to is like people want to say, so you're saying that women will always cheat? No, I'm not saying that because I got to keep going back prior to the sexual revolution because you have to get a comparison here. Prior to the sexual revolution, we had stigmas against women being single mothers. Okay,
I think we still have some of those.
A little, but like right now, single mothers are superheroes. They can go and electively become a single mother. 42% of births in the United States are born out of wedlock right now.
42%.
And we hold women, and that's if you break that down,
get married.
if you break that down ethnically, it gets even a little more squirrely. However, here's the thing: so are they always going to cheat? Are they always meant to be promiscuous? Well, again, human beings are promiscuous, but we are by nature, but we are monogamous by choice. Because if we're not monogamous, it's to the detriment of the human species.
Fair enough, but it sounds like you're saying that with this dual mating strategies, that women are naturally wired to get the seed of the alpha, settle down with the beta, right? That the alpha is
that is the strategy that is used if they cannot find the best of both worlds in the same guy, which is very rare.
Alpha fucks, beta bucks, right?
But in your case, I would like to say in my case, I'm assuming whoever, you're both. You've raised children.
I am now.
You are now, but initially you weren't both, and you had to become both.
I've been both, and I am both.
You are both, right? So is that a bit of a false binary? Why men can become both? Correct?
They can be. Okay. Yes. If they again, that's the things. Can you teach alpha? Can you teach gay? Can you teach?
So here's a quick thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So two different things. They've done some studies, and they found out that they smelt pheromones off a T-shirt. They did a T-shirt test, limited T-shirt test. This is in the late 90s, early
it's actually.
And they found that women, when they're fertile, prefer more masculine men. This is the alpha seed. And when women were infertile, they preferred the beta T-shirt.
They're looking comfort and rapport.
Sure. And the strong John line. Question one, and I do have to go, so I want to see. Can't we? If that's men and women are attracted to the alpha, and he's muscular and he has the strong jawline. So then is any beta that's muscular all of a sudden an alpha?
No. Okay.
Here
You're making you're crossing streams here.
I'm genuinely asking.
So guys can be like muscular and very, very alpha and still have a very beta mindset. Sure. Is what I'm saying. So you can have a guy who is like.
But the study proved that they prefer muscular men, nothing else.
When they're in the proliferative phase of their ovulatory cycle.
So now let me bounce this off of you. Birth control, hormonal birth control. What percentage of women are on hormonal birth control?
A lot.
Does
that skew the thing?
Doesn't that skew the numbers to say that isn't the idea, because you guys know what birth control does. Birth control tricks the woman's body into thinking she's always pregnant, right? And therefore she's never fertile. So then women who prefer alpha men
will always want feminized guys.
Will always, according to that, the ideal mating strategy will be for the beta. And I'm sorry if this is going over people's heads.
You're saying because they're
not fertile.
The pill, they're not fertile.
And let me tell you, me and my wife,
based on the smell test,
we don't do the pill. Because she was no fun to be around when she was on the pill. Because it was as if she was pregnant all the time, right? And so, how does that counter to that women who are mostly on birth control are going to desire alpha seed for their short-term strategy when the beta needs. So
gentlemen, if you're listening and you're dating a girl or married to a girl who's taking birth control, you
Throw
might want to
that
listen
shit
to
out.
Rollo's answer.
Right. And you are correct about that. By the way, hormonal birth control for women has been more catastrophic to humanity than the atom bomb. Okay.
yeah, I'm not a
Damn.
fan.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I'll tell
It's a
you.
hyperbolic
explain.
statement, but I want to hear your thoughts on that point because I got to leave
think I
in about
mentioned
2
that in the
minutes.
fourth book. Is that it has been
much more
more
time do you
has
got?
had a more
3 minutes.
significant impact on humanity and reproduction and the reason why we're even talking about reproductive rights and abortion this and everything is you can trace it all the way back to 1965, which is where hormonal birth control was created. Now, more to your point, yes, I've dealt with this question quite a bit. If you read the studies of, like, say, Marty Hazelton, Gangstad, I'm trying to think of the other people who've covered this. They talk about that too. They say, well, doesn't that predispose all these women since 1965 to be to
Who are all on
prefer
birth control,
more
beta.
feminized?
That's the ideal
guys.
mating strategy.
Right. So, well, here's the thing. It's not the ideal mating strategy because what they're doing is they're trying to find the both in the same guy still. But what I'm saying is that what happens is it's not just depressing that one side of hypergamy. What's happening is when women take hormonal birth control, and by the way, there's different kinds of hormones too. You have to separate that there's different kinds of pills.
Yep.
So because one deals with I'm not an endocrinologist, but
That's fine.
one deals with LDL and one's luteinizing hormone and the other one is like progesterone or something like that. So they have different effects. That's number one. And number two is that it doesn't necessarily take away hypergamy, but it depresses both sides of it. Okay. So when you are in a relationship with your wife and she really has the hots for you, she's going to be more sexually proceptive when she is in her ovulatory
Yeah,
state.
it's great. I love it.
Prior to the egg dropping, okay? And so you're all about it, right?
Yeah.
If women, and people throw this out the window when I talk about ovulatory shift. The thing is like they go, well, does that mean that when she's in her, ovulating that she's going to go look for Jason Momoa? I'm like, no. If women are in a satisfying relationship, when they are in that phase, they find their husbands and their boyfriends or whatever they want to have sex with, they get hot, right? When women go into the luteal phase, which is after right before menstruation, that's when women start looking for more feminized aspect. They're looking for comfort. It's what I believe Marty Hazelton said. This is that it's like the nesting phase of because your body thinks that it is pregnant, and so therefore that's why you get PMS, because women get bitchy and they want to push away those guys so they can get back with Jason Momoa when the cycle comes back around again. So what happens is the pill doesn't necessarily take away the alpha fuck side of things. It depresses both of those sides when they both come down.
So with that, then it sounds like you're advocating for men being both, right? Be an alpha and a provider protector.
I would say that would be the ideal,
and it would be the ideal also because when we get into having children, women also are very vulnerable when they're pregnant.
Well, women always say this. They want the full package.
They want the full package. So again, going back to prescriptions, my prescription is always going to become the provider, the protector, and the priest of your home. Okay, the priest is going to be engaged with the kids. He's going to lead spiritually.
Should you have authority?
Absolutely, you should have authority. What kind of question is that?
Over her?
Yes. If I tell my wife we're moving to Florida, and we've had potentially had this conversation, we're moving to Florida.
I've had that conversation.
Yeah,
and we did move to Florida.
Yeah. You moved. You said you moved across the country.
What happens if you tell her you're moving to Alaska?
We'll probably move to Alaska.
So that's it. She's following you wherever you go. Wherever you say.
But see, they're in a religious situation where it's like that's the norm.
Which is why I prescribe
Jesus
Jesus to people, because I believe Jesus transforms people's heart. But when anyone that's a true authority or a true alpha, Patrick Bet-David, right, leader of this organization,
yes.
Is he walking around having to remind people every single day that he's the leader of this organization and he's authority? No, he just operates with that type of authority. So we have an understanding that I'm the head and I have the authority, right? And that is what it is. And the anchor of that is our faith in Jesus. And again, when we're talking about what is optimal, what is best, what should we be encouraging men to do? That's why telling them the full picture of what is marriage, when are you least likely to get divorced, what is optimal for a healthy sex life, optimal. We can't look over the biblical covenantal marriage model that has historically proved to be flourishing, despite how corrupt the culture and sex positivity and all this nonsense is. This is still functioning, and this is countercultural. This is still the 70% of guys are overweight, 70% of people overweight. Sweet. Let's not eat like the 70%. Let's get shredded. Let's get our macros in check. Whatever. 80% of guys make under 60 grand. Sauce, how do we fix that? How do we get guys paid? How do we get more money? How do we get those skills up? That's where I'm landing, and I think that's where a lot of my disagreement with the red pill has been. And I think you've clarified some things, but I still think there's some cognitive dissonance here. And as a man, again, you've been married 26 years. That's amazing, right? I would love to see you roll, and I mean this sincerely. As somebody that you claim to be a follower of Jesus, you believe in the physical, bodily resurrection of Jesus. That's a miracle in of itself. I would love to see you preach more with you practice behind the scenes. I think that would be awesome, and that would be my heart for you. And I don't mean this in a derogatory
I know.
mean.
I know. Altar call time. It's
Yeah,
fine.
no,
I
it's
get
not
it.
altar call. I really mean that. Like I think we all should be preaching what we practice because it may not work for everyone. But goodness gracious, it could work for a lot of people and save a lot of people a lot of heartache.
I would agree with you, but I would also say it's also very important to have the facts and have the empirical data and have the thing. Like we want the full knowledge.
and
you want
we
the
went over,
full education.
We went over
if
the
you want to
empirical
know,
data. We went over when you're more likely to get divorced, there's less money.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We talked about all of that.
Okay, so here's what I would tell guys. You want a prescription? Here's
Come on,
the
please.
prescription. The prescription is this.
Let's go.
Ready.
Know what you're getting into.
Sure.
Know, like, what is it? Knowing is half the battle, right? That you like know what you're getting into. I'm not against marriage. I'm against I didn't see it coming and I didn't know what was
don't
happening
go
and I
blind.
didn't know women's nature and I didn't know the red pill.
And-
Because I deal with this all the time with guys who hit me up and say, "How do I get my wife to fuck me again?" Like that's
Yeah.
the
know what you're
you know.
getting into, and let's tip the scales in your favor. Our buddy Sauce is going to want kids. I want him optimally set up to have the best kids and the best family and the best wife and the best home so that he's happy. He's getting laid all the time. His woman listens to him. Like, that's my heart for him. And again, not altar call time. I'm genuinely saying this. This is my heart for most people. So how do we tip those scales in your favor? You know all about money, man. You could teach me things about money. We
If
talked about
you're-
disability insurance. You giving me game on that, right? These are the sorts of conversations.
If your conviction is, as you say, as as a Christian, and this is how I choose to live my life. My conviction is to live as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Jew, whatever it is, right? It is more imperative on you to know red pill knowledge, to have more education, to know your nature and to know women's nature, because what will happen is you will rely on this. Well, if I pray about it hard enough, things are going to change, rather than knowing what you're doing is ineffective.
I've already agreed with you on the
your
soulmate
marriage.
stuff, the idea. I've agreed with you on that sort of stuff. So I think me and you are on the same page there. I'm saying that this is pragmatic, Rollo. I'm saying this is actually helpful and beneficial, and we should be telling people about this across the board, regardless, and saying, hey, man, you know what? You may not go to church. Church might be a good idea. You know, that might be a good idea for you to get in touch with that side. You might want to consider this whole gospel thing because it's done something for Rollo 26 years later, happily married, daughter, thriving business, online platform, 5 books, goodness gracious.
Yes. Again, like I keep saying, I wish guys could have this. That's why I really feel bad when I cannot endorse marriage in the way that is done right now.
Can you endorse marriage in the way I described it?
Covenantally, yes. Okay. Contractually, no.
Okay. Halfway, we met halfway.
Yeah,
we meet halfway.
It's basically the same conversation I had with Dr. Everett Piper a while.
I read that about you.
It's basically the same conversation.
Did you feel like I respected you and honored you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for reading my books. I very much appreciate it.
And it sounds like we agree on much more.
Well, you didn't come in here from a position of ignorance, and I thank you for that.
It seems like we agreed on a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Covenantal marriage, Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior.
I think that at the end of the book, I say this. The reason, the way that I come to believing in God is because it makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's not because I'm like, oh, I'm just going to, I learned this from somewhere else. It's because the concept, the idea of God, to me anyways, makes sense. So I can't say, I'm not so full of myself.
I want to hear your testimony, Rollo.
Well, I'm not going to say, okay, so here's
I think next time we do this.
Okay, next time we do this, it will take
person.
forever for me to do that. But I will tell you this is that I'm the kind of guy that has to look under the hood. I want to know how the TV is built.
Yeah. Do you guys go to church regularly?
Semi-regularly.
And your wife is a person of faith too.
Oh,
right?
yes, absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You had a question? For the super chat?
Super chat. I had one super chat.
Real quick, you know what time it is?
Yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah,
but I wanted to do the super chat.
One super chat, Manosphere Paradigm, $140. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, bro.
Yeah, it's actually our biggest super chat.
This is a question for Ruslan.
For Ruslan,
Go
it's
for
just
it.
agree or disagree. Does Ruslan agree or disagree with 1 Timothy 2 verses 12? But I suffer not a woman to teach nor an usurp authority over the man.
I believe women should not have authority over a man. I believe a woman cannot be the head pastor or the senior pastor of a church, but I believe women can do other things in church. I would be what some would call, in the Christian context, a soft complementarian.
Gotcha.
So you don't think that a woman can lead a church?
Nope.
Well, yeah, because my buddy is married to this is in Judaism. I don't want to go off the rails here.
I agree.
He's married to a female rabbi.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't agree with that either?
No. I think women can do other things, minister, have evangelistic gifts, lead worship, sing, teach women's ministry, teach at a conference context, sometimes teach on a Sunday morning even. But I think when you're talking about the head of an organization, institution of the body
Do you think
of
a
Christ,
woman can be a CEO of a company?
I think she can, yeah. I think she can. Are more women naturally wired for that?
What's the difference?
The difference is with the scriptures, right? My guardrails is not
Right,
what's
but if you're just
pragmatic.
explaining a scripture versus
Yeah.
teaching people how to do a job, I mean, what's the difference?
The difference is that something could be optimal and there's an exception to the rule versus this is the standard per what we view as the rule. So if somebody's not a Christian, then it doesn't,
So
they're different.
it could be, but it would be an exception to the rule.
It would be an exception to the rule, but I'm saying that's not how the scriptures prescribe it.
Gotcha.
Do you think a woman should be a president of a country, or prime minister of a country?
No.
I don't know. Probably not.
Rollo.
I don't
Wow.
know. I don't know. Probably not. I would say I don't know. Probably not.
We got into that yesterday.
And your wife would agree with you?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, you gotta go
Think
home
so. You
and
gotta go home and ask
Come to
her
be my
now.
wife. That's why I'm trying to get out of here. Hey, it was a
Brother,
pleasure.
thank you.
Rollo, thank you, man.
Guys,
Hopefully we can do
I'm
this
very
again.
appreciative of you guys.
We're
Stay
going to
tuned,
read
because
some more.
we're
of
not
these
done.
things. We're not
We're
done
gonna
yet. We're
have
not done
Rollo.
yet.
Super
Ruslan
chats
is
coming.
leaving.
I
Look at
promise
that.
you guys, super chats. They're
Bro,
coming.
thank you. And I didn't get a chance. If Tony's out there, have him give a quick. Where's Tony at? Is Tony in here?
No.
Where's he at?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
while
you.
we're going
Carlos,
through this, everybody,
we're going to spend another 10,
make
15 minutes
sure
in questions. You cool out there on
Sounds
timing?
good.
All right,
you
cool.
subscribe to Valuetainment Money. Subscribe to Valuetainment. Make sure you guys like the video. We're almost to 100,000 on Valuetainment Money, so let's get it to 100,000. I think
love
it's time.
that.
I
Thank
think
you,
it's time. We've had
Natalia.
some sick guests here.
I was there
you
when
know.
Fresh and Fit hit 100,000, and maybe I'll be here.
Oh, I think it may be the Rollo sauce.
There's
in
some
here.
of that Rollo and sauce, maybe.
No,
Magic.
Rollo
That's awesome.
sauce.
Thank
I
you,
like
guys.
that.
Magical thinking.
I will say I have to agree with you.
Yes.
You should subscribe to Valuetainment Money and smash.
I agree.
But okay, so Rollo, was that what you
How
thought
you
it would
feeling?
be? Was
It
that
was good. It was a good
what-
conversation.
Did you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, he's into like okay. So there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. Okay, stupidity means you don't have the raw materials there to actually process anything, and so you kind of have to. I can forgive stupidity. I can't forgive ignorance, especially when you're smart enough to figure these things out. It's just you simply ignore facts, and this has been sort of like what I've been harping on for the last like 2 or 3 weeks. I did with Jedediah. I did with him as well, and they're not the only ones, by the way. I really get pissed off when people like, oh, should the manosphere go mainstream? And then when it does, people like sort of misinterpret it and corrupt the idea behind it. You know, that like I said, it's all derivatives of the stuff that I've been doing for a long time. But when I have to defend that and I have to defend ideas right now, like people go, well, let's go and talk to Rollo about whether Tate was right about like, you know, dynastic emperors of China, right? And okay, great, thanks, Tate. Now I've got another 2 hours to untangle all this stuff because there's a misperception and people are going to watch the 30 seconds, you know, short of it anyways. So in that sense, it's like I'm harping on the idea between stupidity and ignorance because it's like, well, you're just ignorant of what you're talking about. And if you would educate yourself, that's why I told him, I said, you know, hey, if you just, from the very get-go, back in November, I said, if you want to have a debate, if you want to talk, at least do yourself the favor, do me the courtesy anyways, of reading these books, because I've done a lot of friggin' work on this. And so then we can debate about it. I would love to, I'm glad we did. I wanted to have this talk for a very long time, but it has to be from a position of educated information before you can even, because otherwise we're sitting here for 3 hours and 10 minutes trying to explain, you know, the background of why I come to the points that I come to.
So, but you respect the fact that he actually read the book.
Absolutely, that impressed me above everything else right there.
So if there's anything that
and not just the religion, but the other one too. So.
Is if there's anything that, if you can summarize something you're like, oh, you know what, we totally agree on this, Ruslan and I, and then what is still left to debate? Because I'm teeing up a round 2, by the way. So
well, that's fine.
What do you agree upon? And
what I would argue is this: is like when I approach religion, in the introduction of that book, I made it very, very clear. This is not a book shitting on religion, and this is not a book shitting on atheism either, because that's what people wanted. They go, oh, this is a book shitting on Christianity. I'm not going to read it. Or else it's atheists saying, oh, you're going to try to back up Christianity with the red pill. I'm like, no, neither. And in fact, I said that in the very introduction of it. I said, you're going to be pissed off at me if you're a Christian or a Muslim or whatever, and you're going to be pissed off at me if you're an atheist as well, because I'm going to come out both at the same time. And so when I approach this, like when I talk, I think people have a really tough time wrapping their head around the difference between, let's say, ideology and praxeology, or belief versus empiricism. It's not that empiricism is like innately good or evil. It's just what's factual. What are we looking at as far as the facts? And here's what we we have to deal with. And then from there, we can go with best practices. And usually those best practices turn into mythology, they turn into religious tradition, they turn into doctrine, they turn into ritual, because they had a factual basis at one time. Like I keep saying, like eating shellfish or eating ham, right? You can eat cured kosher, ham right now, and now it's not even about like whether it's kosher in the Bible or not. It's whether the rabbi said, Shalom Aleichem, you can eat this ham.
That
right
is
here.
Hebrew right there. Rollo nailed that one.
Yeah. So and by the way, I learned that working in the liquor industry, working with a lot of Jewish people in the liquor industry, all you needed to do to get a kosher designation for a vodka is just have the rabbi go, vaya con Dios.
They don't do that, bro.
Exactly.
Vaya con Dios, man. Shalom Aleichem.
So what's happened is there used to be like a practicality to kosher beef or kosher hot dog, Hebrew National, right? I want to eat a hot dog, but I can't, Rabbi. Come on, help me out here. Because that was a religious proscription against that. When like today in 2022, it doesn't really make any difference whether you do or you don't. You're not going to die from eating pork right now or bacon. But Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Muslims will not eat because it's in the Bible, and I understand that, and they respect that, and I can respect that too. But it's based on a latent purpose that used to have a function that we're kind of like we kind of figured this out. They just wanted everybody not to eat because they didn't want people to get trichinosis and die in the tribe, right? So, the mythology and everything that becomes doctrine and becomes the religion, it had a function, and now we're kind of like, and there's other aspects of that, and I make the case for that when it comes to like premarital sex or even prearranged marriages for that matter too, because that is also a religious proscription in certain religions.
Natalia, we'll probably spend maybe like 5-10 minutes doing some super chat. I don't think we've had a chance. Rollo and I just sit here and answer questions. So let's just do some shit. Let's be very casual. Yes. Just two dudes answer questions. Right. But do we have some super chats in the comments?
We
start speaking. Guys, this is your time to ask Rollo questions. If you want to know what's going on in Rollo's mind, ask us questions. If you've got some questions for me, let us know in the super chat. And if you want to ask Natalia a question about how ladies think, Natalia will gladly answer that.
How you doing?
So, Natalia, do you want to tee this one up? Do we have something yet, or should we?
Yes, we actually have some. We've been waiting.
You need my Sterling Cooper porn music sound drop.
There we go. Next time.
I'll send it to you.
It says, I'm a 22-year-old male Muslim, so waiting for marriage. Rollo's work is fantastic for a guy like me. It allowed me to understand that I need a very solid frame to make marriages work. No monogamy for me.
You can tell that Natalia does not practice monogamy.
This is a foreign language. What is this?
What is that?
Swahili?
Okay.
Then we also have it's about taking into account the current state. Oh, this is from Hollow Band, $10. Thank you. It's about taking into account the current state of sexual marketplace. It's not about how it should be. It's about the current dystopia and how the best to navigate it. Then we have this one, $9 by Kimmo. He says, Kevin Samuels absolutely did not say to cheat. He highlighted the options and the likelihood of options being exercised. He said women should be prepared to accept it if it happened. Okay, I can understand that. Then a lot of people want to say he's like, and they'll say the same thing about like Fresh and Fit as well. They're saying that you should cheat. And I want to kind of clarify this really quick because I was on Jedediah and I didn't have a chance to really talk about this because people ask me, well, do you cheat on your wife? Right.
No, because that's not my lifestyle and that's not what I'm about. I respect my wife and I respect the equity that we've built into the marriage for over 26 years. I love her to death. She knows. And the other thing is like she knows I go and I do Fresh and Fit, or I worked in the alcohol industry. I worked in the casino industry. So there's that aspect as well. So when people like Ruslan says, well, I would love to know how you go about doing that. Well, I can't say, okay, first you're going to go get into the alcohol industry and you're going to be around a bunch of hot chicks. And then you're going to be on Fresh and Fit and you're going to get around a bunch of hot chicks. And
there's no blueprint for this.
There's no blueprint for this. Yeah. So that's why I shy away from prescriptions. Like I'll give you a suggestion. I'll give you an analysis, but I'm not going to say, here's my 12 rules for life. So that's number one. Number two is this. So when we're talking about like dynastic emperors of China having access to beautiful women. First, you pointed this out, was that, you know, only the high level apex alphas are the ones who can really make that. The tribal chieftains, the emperors, the kings can make that really happen by order of degree. But our concept of marriage in the 21st century is one man, one woman. It's monogamy, and that's it. And that's worked very well for a very long time. The reason we're questioning it right now is because of what Natalia was saying, is that we have all these feminized guys who aren't good candidates for marriage, but there's very few Andrew Tates. There's very few of those guys. And so what's happening is women would rather share a successful alpha than be saddled with a faithful beta. And if you don't believe me, look at all the women catering their lives to avoid beta males. So you're looking at polygamy once again.
But you also see a lot of women also accepting more of a feminine side of men.
Yeah, so those are their two options. They can share the alpha guy, or they can settle on the guy who's and what do we tell women? You don't have to settle for anything, girl. You go. You don't have and don't settle for anything than the best, right? And so consequently, more and more women don't get married. Like we were talking about the Morgan Stanley, you know, rise of the she economy. Women by 2030 in the prime working age, will be like 45% will be single and childless at that. And I don't want that. I'm relating the information. I would like to have society avoid that because it doesn't seem like it's good for a nation and good for families. But that's where we're going, and that's I just work here, man. So I just go out there and I report the news.
But let me ask you something, Rollo, because I know a lot of very successful men. Let's say. You know, when you're talking 6 figures, 6 foot, the whole thing, double that, triple that. I mean, I'm talking very, very, very successful guys who are married. Okay. Not many of their wives who are living amazing lives are allowing any of that cheating
So you
stuff.
just said allow. You just said the word allow.
You notice that I didn't say that they don't do that. I'm just saying they don't allow that.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want that. Like I keep saying, you know, women don't want a man to cheat, but they love a man who could cheat. No woman wants to be with a guy that no other woman wants or no other man wants to be. Okay. The problem with this, and I heard you bring this up on one show. The problem with this is that the things that make a guy alpha and make him attractive and arousing and like fun and really want to rock his world kind of thing, those things are exactly the things that are counter to her being able to lock him down in security. So there's the balance right there. That's why it's what you're going to have John from Model Life Dating on here pretty soon. It's what we call the extra scoop of rice. Okay. And what that is once a woman gets with the guy that she is clearly high value, she'll find ways to mate guard him, and usually that's the extra scoop of rice, which is fatten this guy up a little bit.
You just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, make him. Yeah,
let me tell you a story, Rollo.
Desexualize him, but in doing so, she destroys the aspect of what made him sexy and arousing at the same time. So therefore, now he's the fat, happy husband instead of the hot Superman guy that she used to.
But do you think they do that so that they stay and they don't cheat?
It's mate guarding.
Okay,
a form of mate guarding. There's other ways of doing it.
Thank you, Rollo. This is why we have.
When he comes on here, you make sure
excited.
you say the extra scoop of rice.
Yes. Well, I have a friend. Okay, I'm not going to name names, but anybody that he was the guy throwing all the parties in Miami in like late 90s, 2000s. He got married around 50 years old. No, I'm sorry, late 40s. He married a gorgeous, gorgeous woman, Brazilian woman. Okay. And he's very faithful to her, no doubt that she's like kind of the boss, even though he's got all the money, he's got all the clout, he's got the resources, everything you talk about. But she's vocally wants him to gain weight. She's like, no, eat more.
You look better with more meat on your bones.
And I always say, like, why do you want...
I mean, a little tummy's okay.
She's encouraging the dad bod. And I go, why do you... She goes, I don't want him going nowhere. I know who this guy was. I know what he used to do. I locked him down. You think I want to lose this situation?
Yep. It's mate guarding.
Get fat, get a little, out of shape.
Extra scoop.
Is that what it is? So is that how these women operate?
That's how we stay safe out here.
It's what?
That's how we stay safe out here with our men.
Order another. So
when he comes on here, I know John's coming in the middle of August, you tell him the extra
scoop of rice. So walk us through the woman's mindset for that and why a man.
Well, it's mate guarding. It's like anything else. It's like, remember when women mate guard, it's usually usually they don't want to lose their investment, their long-term security investment. So when a woman is between the ages of say 18 and 28, those are the prime years that she can like have her hoe phase, and she can find the guys, she can play the field, she can hoe around. Not my words. I said party phase in my book. I didn't say hoe phase, but. And that's the point at which women say, okay, I'm at my maximal level of sexual agency. This is when I'm going to be my hottest. This is when I'm going to be the most sexually marketable in the sexual marketplace. And as they get older, they get cycled out by the next, generation of 23-year-olds.
The McConaughey perspective.
And again,
I get older, they stay the same age.
Let me clarify the wall really quick. Yes. The wall is not your ladies. Is not your body. There's plenty of girls who are like doing Fitness America pageants at 34 or 36. Yeah, there are. But your 33-year-old self could in no way compete with your 23-year-old self in the sexual marketplace, or at least not as effectively. I hope you stay in shape. Please do.
Let's play that clip of the wall real quick. I think we actually have that clip for you, Rollo. We're prepared for you, baby. We know who you are.
Pink Floyd.
So go ahead.
Here we go. Let me just make sure audio's up. Okay. Ready?
Look at you guys. You knew we were going to get
I know. But Natalia forgets to, play the audio sometimes.
No, the audio's on. Okay. It's on me.
Hit the space bar.
Okay.
Years old right now. I mean, it's getting pushed further and further back.
I'm talking about marriage.
Well, it's because we've empowered women and they're going to school and they've got careers and no bullshit. They want to hold out because they believe that they have more choice than they actually do.
God, is that what I
and
said?
Then it bites them in the ass when they get past the 31-year-old mark, whether you want to call that the wall or whatever you want to call it. I don't care.
Okay.
Once they get past that, they become yellowed pearls. They're not undesirable, but they become less desirable. Less desirable than the 23-year-olds, that the guys that they want to get with during that time of their lives, assuming they're high-value guys, that they can only hold out for the high-value guys. They're not interested in a 31-year-old. They're interested in a 21-year-old.
So break that down. Are women
and
after...
Buy that book.
Yeah, buy that book. Are women after the age of 30, 31 considered yellowed pearls? Explain that.
The term yellowed pearls I got from actually Chinese culture. There's a documentary thing called Yellowed Pearls. And it was the crisis of marriage, I think, in China and areas of China. And they have like matchmakers. Like it's an industry in China. And it's not just women, it's men who are also matchmakers as well. And they have it's not online or anything. You go to this park, right? Like the public park, and you meet the matchmaker, and they have like a binder full of pictures and like profiles, and they say, what about this one? And so it's like this kind of thing. What their terminology is that if a woman is past a certain age, or if she's fat or whatever, like she sort of disadvantages herself in the sexual marketplace, they call her a yellowed pearl. And I was very generous, because in China, they'll say if you're 25, you're a yellowed pearl. I'm talking about like 31.
You're no good. You're no good.
Well, you're a pearl. You used to be good, but now you're not as good as you were when you were a white pearl. So that's the terminology right there. Like but what I'm saying is the yellow pearl side of things is women will think that their sexual market value and their agency is evergreen. And I've mentioned on this podcast before, I think it was when George Gammon was on here, I said, if you want to be a millionaire and you want to market the sexual marketplace, find some grift, some hack, whatever, that convinces women that they have more time in the sexual marketplace than they actually do. Make them believe that their sexual agency is evergreen, and you will be able to sell magazines, you'll be able to sell egg freezing, you'll be able to sell abortion, you'll be able to sell anything that has to do with the idea that it's not forever 21, it's forever 41. Avoid that. And if you can convince women as old as what are we talking about, Paulina Porzakova, that her sexual market value should be indefinite, then you're going to sell a lot of product, whatever, according to that, because it's very seductive for women to believe that they're never going to be a yellowed pearl.
So what about the whole, like, there's a lot of dudes out there that love the MILFs and the cougars.
Yes,
and
because it's the shortest distance between 2 points.
Explain that.
Well,
what do you mean?
You'll notice this is men have fetishes. Women do not have fetishes. Not in the same degree that men do. You have a foot fetish, big ass, blonde hair, skinny, fat, midgets, whatever. You name the.
Actually
name
true.
It.
Yeah.
That is
Name
actually
it.
very
Men
have fetishes, and women do not have fetishes. There's no. You name
I mean,
a woman
women
that
may have some, but not like men.
Their fetishes is Jason Momoa. That's their fetish. It's like a guy who's
That's
built
your
and
fetish,
loved.
bro.
No,
You talk about Jason Momoa.
Because you know why? You know why I use Jason Momoa?
Yeah.
Because every woman from 15 to your grandmother wanted to go see Aquaman when it came out. And it's not because they're fans of the DC comic. They don't know who Aquaman is. Like, hey, I'm really wanting to
got
go see
that body.
Aquaman when it comes
some of that
out.
Momoa.
That's what they wanted to. They don't care about Aquaman. They care about Jason Momoa.
Men have a ton of fetishes, right?
Why do you
Black,
think
white,
that,
yellow,
though?
brown,
Why?
grades, tall, short. What
Why
do you
do
mean?
men have
Because
more
men
fetishes?
are opportunistic breeders. They're opportunistic. Like that's why you have MILFs. That's why I like fat women, right? Or I prefer
BBW.
BBW.
I like
right?
my women. BBW.
Find me the dating site where it exclusively caters to women, fit in shape, good-looking women who make a good amount of money, who are specifically looking for fat guys. Find me that one, please.
Pull up
Someone tell me where that is.
Pull up this website, fatdudeslittledicks.com. That does not. She's.
I was like, what?
Women's physical.
She's like, Control Alt Delete that out of my life. I'm out.
Women's physical standards of beauty are far more static than men's, and that's one of the great deceptions of this. Well, really, the 20th century too, is the idea that men just want these perfect little cover models on the magazine, and they're airbrushed and they got big tits and blonde hair and blue eyes and everything like that. No. Go watch Pornhub and look at all the different all the different.
That's what men want to have
fetishes,
sex with,
because it's whatever worked for them in the past. So if the guy solved his reproductive problem, or he couldn't get laid with the hot chicks he wanted to, so he had slump bust, and I'll go, nobody's ugly after 2 a.m. I'll go and have sex with the fat girl. Now suddenly that's sexually productive for me or successful. I'm going to keep coming back to that same watering hole all the time, and I'm saying I have a preference for it. So you rationalize that, when in fact you'd probably much rather be with the chick who looks like Jennifer Aniston.
Well,
or something.
there is some truth to women prefer quality and men prefer quantity.
Well, men are as I said, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, and that's exactly what pornography provides to guys vicariously.
Yeah.
And so if you go and you look, that's one of the greatest, I said like in the beginning of this show, from like 2000, 2005 on to where we are right now, we have such access to information, and one of those is the access to the information on our sex lives that Pornhub keeps track of us. And so like, what are we searching for? What do we want? What do we get off on? What do we want to look at?
What are we searching for?
And you'll notice that and they can break it down by age, they can break it down by sex, they can break it down by country. You name the demographic breakdown, they have it, man. Pornhub
How do you know?
Pornhub is the Pornhub blog has no porn on it, but it has all of the data that.
Okay.
I log into Pornhub specifically for the blog.
There you go.
The
I
blog.
like to hear the writing, and it's like watching.
Man.
When I used to listen to
fascinating. I love doing it because
Playboy for the picture,
it helps
for
me.
the articles.
It helps me with comebacks for like people who are like sort of dyed-in-the-wool feminists, or like, that's not what we're really about. Oh, really? Pornhub had something to say about that.
All varieties. Last couple questions. Let me tell you a quick story. And I don't know if there's a woman out there. I have a buddy of mine, again, nameless, and I call him 2 to 10. Because he'll take down a 10 one night, and he'll take down a 2 another night, and everything in between. He stays away from ones, though. And I go, dude, what are you doing, bro?
I got standards.
You were with I got standards. I go, you were with the most gorgeous girl last night, and now you're with this husky buffalo. He's like, buddy, I got fetish. I got all that. And it's just like, okay.
I'm just a freak like that.
I kind of hang out in the, 8, 9,
freaks
10
of the
category.
industry. Yeah.
If you're a funny 7, I'll mess with you. But 8, 9, 10s is what I would kind of mess with. But there's a lot of men that are kind of 2 to 10, especially after they're drinking. I don't know a lot of women who are, I'll 2 to 10. I'll take a guy who's a stud, Brad Pitt, Jason Momoa, or I'll take, Chunky O'Henry over here. That it just doesn't exist.
Well,
we have
the girls
different
do
means,
if those chunky O'Henry guys are
Paid.
able to,
Yeah, they're caked up.
yeah.
but you're not
they still-
specifically looking for those guys.
No.
Well, I think also when women do start to take like you said, it becomes like a fetish. Like, oh wait, I am into that. When women start, like they start settling, but in a other way of
rationalizing it because they're already locked in with the guy, and they can't. It's like cheaper to keep her. Like, it's cheaper for me to stay with this guy.
Keeper. He's got all the one-liners. I'm telling you, we're taking this comedy out to the road.
I stay with her because I'm really love her so much. And now you know.
All right, last couple questions.
Okay, so I'm going to read
we'll
some of the
Rollo.
bigger super chats because we've got
Yes.
some of them. So one, it was $99. Thank you, Slowhand Fidel. This one's a little bit of a personal question, but it says, Rollo, your real name is George Miller. Why do you call yourself an Italian name, Rollo Tomassi? I'm Italian. You don't even look Italian.
Yeah.
Are you trying to be cool?
Do you think that I would name myself Rollo Tomassi if I wanted to look Italian? Do you I know.
So hold on, I didn't know your real name.
Yeah, that's my real name.
George
Thank you very
Mitchell?
much. George
We
Miller.
can Google that.
George Miller. I apologize.
Is my legal
George
birth name.
Miller.
I've used Rollo Tomassi since like the early 2000s.
So I kind of think I knew that wasn't your real name, but I didn't. I just
Well,
always
I
known
go
you as
by.
Rollo.
I
Explain
go by
that.
now. I could go by my real name now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make any difference to me because enough. Like you can go ahead, dox me, dude. Oh, you got me right. No, I don't know who's doing this, but you're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You know where the name Rollo Tomassi comes from? Because probably most of the chat already does too. It comes from a 1997 movie called L.A. Confidential, which was a fantastic book before it was a fantastic movie, and it is the name given to a fictional character in the fictional book. Called Rollo Tomassi. Rollo Tomassi is the name of the criminal that Guy Pearce's character. I can't remember his name off the top.
You said this on your podcast.
Yeah, I've already said this. Yeah, so you didn't get me, dude. And trust me, I of all people, I'm Nordic, dude. I'm Danish. I have Danish blood, not Italian blood.
Nice try, bruh.
Yes.
That.
Go watch.
I'm here with George. You don't know shit. But we appreciate the super chat.
Go
Respect.
watch L.A. Confidential, and you'll know how self-owned you just are.
By the way, what a movie. Kim Basinger, what
and,
a freaking babe in that
Russell
movie.
Crowe, Guy Pearce, Danny DeVito, Kim Basinger. Who's the other guy? I forget the dude. He was in Deep Space Nine too. I forget that. There's a lot. It's an all-star cast. It's
Russell Crowe was the
fantastic.
badass, the tough guy.
By the way,
Guy
a very
Pearce
red
was
pill
the-
movie on top of everything else too.
Well, it took place, I believe, in the old
In
Hollywood,
the 40s,
1940s, exactly.
post-war 40s.
And
yeah.
what was the name of that? You know, the Night Owl or something like it was like.
It was a gumshoe kind of like gritty kind of detective.
But there was like 3 people died at the cafe or the
it's
diner.
the corrupt cops story.
Do you remember the name of the diner or no?
No, I don't.
It's like there was at the Night Owl, whatever. Anyway, thank you for that question.
Last
We
two.
appreciate that. Good to meet you, George.
Sure.
I will prefer to call you Rollo.
Thank you.
Yes, I
It
like
rolls
Rollo.
off the tongue.
You know,
better.
it's funny. So, Gene Simmons' name is not Gene Simmons. Paul Stanley's name is not Paul Stanley. Let's see. Who else do you want to talk? Like, oh, hey, I got you, man. You're not really who you say you are. You know, I am who I say I am, and if you want to go look up my real name, that's fine. You can also go look up, Stanley Werbabitz or whatever his Jewish name is, Paul Stanley from Kiss, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who take stage. Madonna, guess what? That's not actually her name.
At least you're not a catfish. There we go.
Hey,
And
I
you're
tell
not
my-
Italian, Rollo.
Hey, we had some really good Italian food yesterday.
That's true. We have a great dinner.
I do
last
like
night.
Italian food, so you got me.
Yeah,
there.
me too.
Good. Last few. Let's
Last
go.
two, we have Amin Diana, $139. Thank you. And it says, I think Mother Mary being a recipient of revelation is lost on her not being a leader of the flock.
Mother
Alrighty.
Mary.
Not too sure
Are they
about
talking
that
about?
I think Ruslan,
One of-
something with, I think Mother Mary being a recipient of revelation is lost on her not being a leader of the flock.
Okay. Was there a question to that?
No, it's just a statement.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
it-
Thank you,
Thank you.
Orthodox Catholic.
Yeah. All right. And then we have this last one we can read. It was $200. I think this is one of our highest ones. From Daniel Rivera. He's been throughout the chat, so thank you. I hope you're subscribed and you liked. He said both men were exceptional and had a great arguments. Keep up the great content. Get the likes up. Shout out to Rollo and the Soscast crew. We love it, Daniel.
Yo, thank you, Daniel.
Yes.
Respect.
Great way
Read
to
his last name
finish it.
again.
Daniel Rivera.
Daniel Rivera.
Rivera.
You're a Latina. Why can't you say Rivera? Daniel Rivera.
And roll your R's.
Yes, Rollo Tomassi.
Yes, hey.
Anything else before we go? Last couple questions,
Yes,
guys. If
last
you've got
one.
it.
Someone said, Nat, you're a white pearl. I appreciate
Oh.
you.
For 5 more years. For 5 more years. Natalia.
End it. We gotta get out of here.
Cut this trip.
Cancel.
Anyway, thank you. Is there anything else that we before we go?
Those are the bigger chats.
Thank you,
We'll
guys.
be getting through the other chats. So just make sure you guys subscribe. We're gonna be doing this many times. So
Yes.
subscribe so we can get through all of your chats. Make sure you guys like the video, share the video, and there's a lot of new
Should we,
things coming.
Yeah.
so
Should
stay
we
tuned.
reveal like a little teaser?
Yeah,
So we do this every Thursday.
Oh, I just
You
want to say
know?
before
Yes.
you reveal that, I don't know if you're coming with me, but I'm going to be on Justin Waller's podcast probably an hour or so after this. I have to go from here to Justin. Hey,
Oh,
Justin,
nice.
I'm on my way. Don't
No, I
start
can't
without
come,
me.
but I would like to maybe hang out later with Justin, and for sure
So
we'll hang out this
Miguel
weekend.
and I will both be on
Miguelito.
Justin's- Yeah.
Oh, and the last
So
thing.
what's that?
who won the debate. We've got 85% Rollo and 15% Ruslan.
Gotta get those numbers up.
I don't know. I don't know if it was that skewed.
Well, a lot of people also said it was in the middle too.
Yeah.
So we also, I think it just means round two.
I would love to do a round two. Well, Rollo's going to be
With
here
some
all the
other
time. We
guests?
know that.
See, I don't like when we talk about debates. By the way,
Yeah.
like this isn't a debate.
No,
this is
more of
not.
a
This is just
conversation.
like a meeting of the minds and a conversation.
Right.
Because
Well,
a
you know
debate is
about the
like I
red
think of.
meat. You
I
know.
think of like debate in like formal college debate team. It's like you argue the point and that's it. And so like
And
when people
that's how
say,
you debate.
Yes.
That's from old school. Natalia, so we do the show every Thursday, panel discussion. This is what we do in the Soscast. But starting Fridays in August, this will be after our big, we've got some travel to do, and I'll be out of town for a little bit. But Natalia and I are going to be hosting a new Soscast starting on Fridays. Where it's going to be a call-in show specifically. We'll have more information on that. We may or may not have guests. Thursdays are more panels, guests, Rollo, everything.
Yes.
But Natalia and I will be answering all your questions on Fridays. We'll be talking money, dating, relationships. We might have call-in guests for those, if Rollo's not here, maybe we call Rollo and ask him some questions,
and I've been involved with
your,
I've been involved with your Thursday shows for a long time, so you're gonna get the good content.
And we're gonna get the good
matter
stuff.
Be
what.
ready for calls on Friday.
Be ready.
Yeah,
Be ready.
yeah,
This is Friday.
I can
But
do
hey,
that.
we're just teasing that. We appreciate that. Guys, what an awesome
It was a good show.
What a show. And I
show.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thank you. You gotta respect Rollo.
Yeah.
He didn't have to debate Ruslan. Ruslan came out here, he was running in and out of town. But I respect, this is what we talk about on PBD podcasts all the time. We respect different opinions, coming on there, having the balls to put it out there. And, like Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena. It's very easy to talk shit on the other. If you're not in the game, it's very hard to sit here and defend yourself and answer questions, good, bad, and the ugly. Just like someone tried to call you out right there. Hey, bro, I'm here. I'm doing my thing. Rollo. So respect to
they
you.
were hoping for a Jack Murphy moment. You're not going to get that from
You're not
going to
get that. Anyway, I appreciate that. Rollo, final words before we go out. If you do anything.
Gosh, I will be with, like I said, Justin Waller here in probably about however long it takes me to get from Fort Lauderdale back to Miami. So I'm doing that. I will be on Fresh and Fit tomorrow with George Gammon. Justin Waller as well. Miguel will be on there. We're going to do a panel show. I believe it's going to be at 7 p.m. is what Myron was saying. So we're going to do a show tomorrow. I'm flying out of here on Saturday back to Reno. So again, my show is usually 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. I'm also hosting Jason Hartman.
Jason Momoa?
Jason Hartman. Big difference. Jason Hartman up in Lake Tahoe. And so Tahoe is kind of like my place to take people and go and talk to like big people. So like I'm going to be there with Jason in actually next week. And we might be doing some like Instagram. We might be doing something together, just like, just shooting the breeze kind of thing. And then Justin Waller and Tom, and I don't know who else is coming, but we're going to do Lake Tahoe again towards the end of August. I've invited you to, but if you want to come, it's always available. We've got some really nice places. I'm going to start doing sort of private events, I think, in Tahoe pretty soon.
Sick.
And then of course, the books are available right now. And I needed to point this out: is the 5th book is available on Audible right now. Don't say when is it going to be available. It's there. And guess what? Yes, it's also available on Kindle and it's also available on print. Because the first thing anybody goes is like, "Oh, it's only available on Audible." No, dude. It's available on all 3. You can get it now, and it's available. Go get it. And my band's 3rd upcoming EP will drop in August as well.
Nice.
What's the name of your band?
Trial of Ascension.
Trial of Ascension.
Yes, the third EP will be dropping on Spotify probably first week of August. So
nice.
There you go.
But anyway, guys, shout out to you guys for listening in here. I made a guarantee to the audience. I said I didn't know who was going to win the debate. According to the audience, it was Rollo. But but I said that the big winner was going to be you guys. If you pay attention to what we talk about here on the Soscast with Rollo, with Ruslan, you're only going to get smarter. You're only going to get sharper. You're only going to have more knowledge to improve your game, your frame, your money, your muscles, everything that we talk about, everything that Rollo has written books and books and books about. Go get the latest one, the Player's Handbook. Play on players out there, the Rational Male Player's Handbook. Thank you. Natalia, you have any final words before we go?
You're not a yellowed pearl.
I'm not a yellow
That's
pearl.
right.
Nope, no final words. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, share, and stay tuned for some of the new stuff we've got cooking because you don't
Ooh
want
la
to miss
la.
it, you know?
Okay. That's it. Thanks for tuning in to Soscast. We'll see you guys next Thursday. We out. Save that money. You know what we do.
Peace.